This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate second and final part of what if Naruto was a fox demon and joined Shinigami. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Orihime politely asked the nurse, "Excuse me, may we take Naruto to the hospital?" With a groan, the nurse turned. "What did he do? Holy shit," began the nurse. Playfully, Naruto waved his left index finger. With his eyes drooping from blood loss, Naruto laughed and said, Now, watch your language." Additionally, his right forearm was still gaping and bleeding. The nurse exclaimed, "What the heck happened?" Tripped?" suggested Naruto. The nurse said, "You don't get a cut like that from tripping." Ichigo hurriedly remarked, "Some thugs attacked him while we were walking back from McDonald's." Orihime added, punching the air with her fists as she spoke, "Yeah, they were coming after me, when Naruto jumped in front of me, and took a blow from one of their knives. I was like, oh no Naruto. You're hurt," and he was like, "It's okay Orihime. I feel fine." And then he beat the crap out of them. Naruto grinned and shrugged. Ichigo helped. "And they didn't shit their pants when we beat them up, it was more like piss. So we beat the piss out of them." "Ooh, potty mouth," said Naruto. Naruto gave Chad a head gesture in return. "He beat the piss out of some guy with a machine gun," he said, jabbing Orihime with his thumb. "And she kicked some guy in the nuts," he said, gesturing to Uryu. "And he got the guy that cut my arm." Naruto swayed and moaned, "Ewan, I feel dizzy." The nurse said, "Ichigo, can you get him to your clinic?" Ichigo asked, "Of course." The nurse said, "Then take him there, and quickly." After grabbing Naruto's left arm, Ichigo pulled him out of the school, with Uryu, Chad, and Orihime following. Naruto's eyes kept closing and opening as his body attempted to put him to sleep. I'm tired." Ichigo moved to push the blonde forward and said, "Don't fall asleep you idiot. Do you want to fall into a coma?" With his eyes closed, Naruto groaned, Yes." Ichigo was well aware that Naruto's ears came back to life when he slept, but they were still concealed by what Naruto claimed to be a genjutsu. Ichigo pulled after speculating about where Naruto's ears might be. Hard. Naruto leapt 4 feet into the air and screamed in agony. "I'm awake okay?" exclaimed Naruto. His eyes immediately drooped once more. "For now." He let out a groan. Ichigo pushed Naruto into his house after turning him to the left, with his other friends trailing behind. Ichigo shouted, "Dad, I could use some help." Ichigo's voice sounded like he was speaking to Naruto through a pillow. Isshin hurried into the room and saw the blood on the floor right away. "What happened?" exclaimed Isshin. Ichigo shouted frantically, "No time, he's losing too much blood. Do something." Naruto dropped to the ground. "Hey, Naruto, stay awake." Ichigo shook Naruto's shoulder and cried out. With his eyes closed, Naruto answered, "Don't wanna." Isshin draped one arm over Naruto's shoulder and lifted him up. Isshin laid Naruto down on the couch and yelled, "Come on Naruto. You need to stay awake. Yuzu. Karen. Get the emergency kit. Instead." Isshin warned, "Stay awake, or you'll go into a coma." Naruto was gradually nodding off, as evidenced by his deeper and slower breathing. "Can't, he's calling me, to the chamber." Naruto uttered that as he slept, his body going limp. Orihime asked aloud, "He calling him?" Chad further stated. Ichigo exclaimed, "Chamber? What the hell?" With a metal box in tow, Yuzu and Karen dashed into the room. Karen gave her father some bandages and ointment and exclaimed, "What happened to him?" To halt the bleeding, Isshin securely fastened a band around Naruto's arm just above his elbow. Isshin said, "That's right. Ichigo, what happened?" "Well, we were coming back from lunch at McDonald's, and these thugs jumped out of an alley. One went after Orihime with this long knife thing, but Naruto took the attack for her, and he cut his arm. We took out the thugs, and went back to school. Naruto said the cut was no big deal, and would be fine on its own. His judgment is usually the best way, so we just trusted him. But then he started to say he was dizzy and tired, and the nurse ordered us to bring him home." Ichigo responded. Isshin inquired, "Good. How long was his arm cut?" Isshin touched the wound, and Naruto held his breath. Ichigo answered, I don't know, 20 minutes? Isshin stood back and remarked, "That's bad, he should have died from blood loss by now. He's very lucky." Up to his shoulder, Naruto's right arm was completely covered in bandages. "Are you guys going to go back to school, or stay here?" Isshin responded. Ichigo sat down on the chair a few feet away from the couch and said, "We'll just stay here." Isshin then left the room with Karen and Yuzu, saying, "Fine. I need to run to the store anyway." Now what? Inquired Uryu. Ichigo replied, wait for him to wake up. Then what? Inquired Uryu. Ichigo said, make him explain who the hell those ninja were. Then what? Get something to eat. Then what? Ichigo questioned, do you have to know everything we're doing today? Yes. Uryu answered. Happy that Naruto was unconscious and unable to see it, Ichigo moaned and palmed his forehead. Naruto looked at Ichigo and remarked, I think it's 86 now. Ichigo questioned, how the hell do you wake up that quickly? Naruto said, secret. Uryu said, can we ask you some questions? Naruto answered, only if I feel like answering them. What is the mark on your stomach that Ichigo is always talking about? Pass. What was that cloak thing? Pass. Why can your eyes turn red? Pass. How are you a Hanyu? Pass. What is the person that was calling you? Pass. What was the chamber you were speaking of? Pass. Fine. Let's start with an easier one, what's your name? Pass. What the hell? Exclaimed Uryu. Naruto complained while continuing to look at his wounded arm. What? You already know the answer to that. But we don't know the answers to the other questions. Why do you keep avoiding answering those questions? Replied Uryu. Naruto answered, because I said I don't want to answer them. And why not? Interjected Ichigo, because. Because why? Naruto rolled his head back and sighed, because I don't want to, and in a free country, in a country with freedom of speech, I have the right to deny that question, Naruto replied. Chad remarked, that's America. Naruto laughed and said, see, I was paying attention. With his head rolling back once more, Naruto groaned, I'm still dizzy. Ichigo cautioned, remain awake. You still might go into a coma. Naruto moaned, you don't think I don't know that, but I'm tearade. Abruptly, his red, flashing eyes popped open, and he sprang to his feet. Fine, I'm up, hissed Naruto. Ichigo questioned slowly, what the hell was that? Quickly, Naruto said, nothing. He started massaging his left arm. Naruto complained to himself, God. You didn't have to bite me. Ichigo said, you'll have to explain what's wrong with you sooner or later. With composure, Naruto replied, and I choose later. The phrase, I don't want to go, was repeated by Naruto. As Naruto dug his heels into the ground, Ichigo kept dragging him by his left arm. My dad said you were already well enough to go back school, Ichigo replied. Naruto groaned, I was attacked only yesterday though. Ichigo sighed, and you're already okay. At last, Naruto gave in and followed him. He was constantly the target of second looks from passers-by on the streets. His right arm, still entirely wrapped in bandages, was the center of attention for everyone. Whispering somewhere, Naruto yelled in agony as he abruptly struck his right arm against a wall. Naruto screamed, is my right arm freaking cursed or something? Probably. Ichigo gave a deadpan, gee thanks. You're welcome. I was being sarcastic. Ichigo returned blankly, so was I. You suck. I hate you. I know that already. I'm going to kill you. Whack. Good luck with that. Naruto yelled, damn it, as he unintentionally slammed his right arm into another wall. Ichigo. Why the hell is Naruto going back to school already? Asked a voice. As Uryu, Chad, and Orihime drew closer, Naruto and Ichigo turned to face them. Ichigo answered, because he's a stupid kitsune. Ichigo screamed in shock and agony as Naruto clamped his teeth down on his hand. Stop talking like a fool. We can't tell the humans, Naruto growled. Ichigo rubbed his bitten hand and complained. He complained, let's just get to school. Orihime proposed, we should cut through the alleyways. With his friends at his heels, Naruto hurried down the alleyways after saying, okay. A sizable crowd observed from the rooftops in the meantime. Sensei, I don't know if what we saw was true. There could have been an enemy ninja casting a genjutsu over the boy, said a woman. As Naruto flipped over a dumpster and landed on the back of the orange-haired boy, causing him to crash into the ground, the sensei retorted, it's him all right. He matches the descriptions. The boy then jumped after Naruto, trying to strangle him while laughing uncontrollably. A woman with long black hair said, how are we going to get him Kakashi? He's probably very strong. This is getting annoying, so I'm just going to call them by their names. I don't know. I was thinking that he would come back as soon as Sakura told him, but I guess not. But Hokage Sama ordered us to bring him back. So, even if we must use force, we must follow his orders and bring him back. Kakashi responded. Gaara abruptly said, I feel bad. Everyone looked surprised as they turned to face him. Gaara, do you feel bad? Go. Japan is about to blow up. He looks so happy, being here, with these people that apparently found out that he's a fox. They at least accept him for what he is. I feel bad that we have to take him away from here. Gaara stated. Don't do that. The end of Japan is not imminent. The world is about to end. What happened to you? Why's your arm all wrapped up? Did you get into an accident? In response to every question, Naruto said, attacked by thugs, they cut my arm with a large knife, and yes, you could say that. The students gathered around Naruto questioned, you were attacked? By thugs? Which group? What else happened? With a sigh, Naruto wanted to hide beneath his desk and slide down in his seat. Naruto answered, yes, I don't know, and we beat the piss out of them. As soon as the teacher entered, every student sat down. With a gesture toward Naruto's bandaged arm, the teacher exclaimed, good morning class. Today we will. What the hell? Naruto grinned and waved. Naruto exclaimed, hiya, what are we doing today? What happened to your arm? Exclaimed the instructor. Exasperated by the constant questions, Naruto answered, attacked by thugs. I don't know which group though. Why? Naruto shrugged and said, ask the thugs, not me. They just popped out of an alley with a freaking knife. Ichigo added, don't forget the man with a machine gun. A faint smile appeared on Naruto's face as he turned to face Ichigo. You're right. I forgot about him. Naruto nodded after acknowledging this. He lost his expression. Where the hell do y'all get a machine gun in a heavy populated city anyway? Seriously. How does that even happen? Asked Naruto. According to Uryu, smuggling. Chad said, built by the owner? Orihime went on, or beamed down by aliens. With expressionless faces, Naruto, Ichigo, Chad, and Uryu gazed at Orihime. Naruto deadpanned, you need to get your head checked out. Orihime laughed and grinned. Yep. She exclaimed with joy. Naruto, you should get your head checked out too. Ichigo replied. Naruto smiled. That may be so, but you need to get your genes checked out. Where the hell did your orange hair color? Replied Naruto. Ichigo's mouth fell open. Naruto exclaimed, huh? I win. With a victorious laugh. Well, where did you get your hair color, or those whisker birthmarks? Ichigo came back. You know my father has my yellow hair color, and you just answered the other questions yourself. They're birthmarks. Naruto chuckled. All of a sudden, there was a roar and the room shook. The other students hid under their desks as Naruto roared, earthquake. While grinning and diving beneath his desk. Orihime, Chad, and Uryu had somehow already left the room. Sneaking out, Naruto and Ichigo sped through the hallways, easily catching up to Uryu, Chad, and Orihime. As they ran, Ichigo remarked, nice distraction. It wasn't a distraction. This is seriously an earthquake, but a high-power hollow is in the area as well. He's probably the reason for the earthquake, replied Naruto. And how did you instantly know it was an earthquake? Ichigo inquired. Naruto mimicked a Chinese monk and remarked, remember, I'm a kitsune, and it's my responsibility to be in tune with nature. Uommm. Ichigo said, you're a freak on nature. Naruto chuckled, no, I'm a kitsune of nature. Ichigo complained, you're still a freak. With a smile, Naruto took off from his body. He stood and waved his actual body. Ichigo quickly did the same. The group rushed from the structure. Ichigo. Your Ritsu is flying everywhere you freaking idiot, Naruto screamed. Ichigo said, huh? Oh, sorry. I'm not used to earthquakes. He had no idea that his Ritsu had impacted a sizable contingent of nearby shinobi. Naruto laughed and tossed him a dog biscuit, saying, good boy. Your Ritsu is under check. Have a cookie. Instead, Ichigo used his hand to cut it in half. Ichigo commanded, you idiot. Stop fooling around. Despite rolling his eyes, Naruto let out a hysterical laugh. Naruto, 50 paces to your left is a hollow. Kyuubi gave the order. Hello. Regards, Furball. Naruto uttered those words. Ichigo, hollow on our left, 50 paces, at the park, said Naruto. Ichigo questioned, how the hell do you know that? Naruto commanded, I'm a freak. Just turn, and sped off to his left. The others hurried after, attempting to match the fox Hanyu's pace. The hollow appeared abruptly as the park came into view. Huh? See? Naruto greeted the others with a smile. Rakshaya was pulled from his back by him. Naruto commanded, Ichigo, I'll take this one. You take the other. What other? Inquired Ichigo. Naruto sneered, the one right behind you. Ichigo whirled around and narrowly avoided being struck by a huge hollow that resembled a cross between a bull and a monkey. Naruto faced his own hollow, which looked a lot like a cross between an ant eater and a wild boar. Naruto shifted his blade a few inches to the right and said, "And you are?" His right arm started to hurt, and the cut started to bleed once more. And the hollow said, "Lickhoof." Naruto tried not to laugh, and his cheeks swelled. Trying not to laugh, Naruto questioned, "Lick, hoof?" Naruto grinned and said, "Well then lick, hoof." Trying not to laugh again, "You get the joy of being defeated by a wild fox demon." Lickhoof responded, "A fox demon, huh? Good luck. The name still makes me laugh." With a smile on his face, Naruto charged forward, slashing his sword from right to left. The blow only went 1/4 of the way through Lickhoof's right leg because the wound in Naruto's arm pulsed with pain, even though it could have gone straight through. Naruto growled, "Shit." Naruto crashed into the tree after Lickhoof struck him in the stomach with its front right hoof. Naruto paused for 5 seconds to observe Ichigo's battle. It wasn't getting any better for him. The level of these two hollows had to be high. Naruto looked down at his hand and got back up. Rakshaya remained trapped in the leg of the hollow. "Great. Just great," exclaimed Naruto. Naruto complained, "Thank God I have jutsu at my disposal." He formed a hand seal by crossing his fingers. Naruto yelled, "Kage Bushin no jutsu." There were 16 clones. "Oh, interesting power you have. I wonder if I will gain that power when I drain you of your Ritsu." Lickhoof sighed. Naruto snarled, "Go ahead and try, dumbass." He gestured toward Lickhoof. Naruto gave the order, "Attack. 3 of you go to the left, 3 to the right, 5 above, and 5 below." Speaking in a language that Uryu, Orihime, Chad, and Ichigo heard but did not comprehend, Naruto commanded, "I'll attack his front." Ichigo yelled, "What the hell was that, Naruto?" Naruto said, "I'll tell you later," in response, "Now attack." Naruto gave the order. After disappearing, the clones resurfaced on their designated sides. They all used kicks and punches to attack. Above Lickhoof's head, Naruto emerged and protruded his foot. He started to fall head over heels and quickly became a swirling blur. Lickhoof's boar-like head smashed into the ground as he slammed the heel of his foot into it. When the clones vanished, Rakshaya took off. As he left Lickhoof, Naruto looked around for his sword. Naruto uttered the thought, "Now, where'd it go?" Abruptly, a big tongue encircled his waist. Lickhoof exclaimed with triumph, "Yes, I got him. Now I will be able to absorb his power." Naruto exclaimed, "What the hell can a tongue do to a?" "Oh." By absorbing its victim's Ritsu dry, Lickhoof could acquire its abilities. However, he needed to hold the individual. And in his tongue. In his grasp. Naruto's blue aura abruptly turned blood red as he started to glow blue. As he started to absorb Kyuubi's power, Lickhoof let out a painful roar. He let a depleted Naruto fall to the ground. Lickhoof exclaimed, You're him. You're Uzumaki Naruto, the monster of Konoha." Then, abruptly, Rakshaya was back in Naruto's grasp. Naruto complained, "Good to know I'm known throughout Hueco Mundo." He sent a wave of Ritsu at Lickhoof with a downward swing of his blade. Naruto snarled as the attack drew closer to Lickhoof, Getsuga Tensho. You have Kyuu. Lickhoof was sliced in two, so he never got to finish. From the position of propped up on his elbows, Naruto retreated into his "I'm dead, so leave me alone" pose. Rakshaya fell to the ground with a clatter. Ichigo and the others were by his side in a matter of seconds. The bastard made me bleed again, and the idiot drained me of my freaking energy. How am I gonna get back to school now? Naruto was grumbling. A male voice said, "Uzumaki Naruto. You aren't going back to school." Naruto took a seat. The vast majority of ninja had returned, and now they were accompanied by even more, including some adults. They caught Naruto's attention. He pointed to the shinobi while looking up at Ichigo. Naruto questioned, "Now how the hell can they see us?" Slowly, Ichigo said, "I don't know." Uryu muttered, "You think they're hollows?" As he got up and laid Rakshaya back on his back, Naruto complained, "They're just humans, Uryu. They aren't dead." Naruto complained, Yeah, I know. Late for school. Earthquake over." "Rakshaya?" inquired Ichigo. Naruto nodded his head in confirmation, "Rakshaya." With a sigh, he turned as his energy abruptly returned. "Come on." He breathed deeply, "The teacher will go psycho if we aren't there before lunch is over." Ichigo called, "But, we have a problem at hand, Snaggletooth." Naruto responded with ease, "And that problem is not a problem in my problematic eyes." "What?" inquired Ichigo. Captain Carrot, you're my problem right now. You're so dumb you can't even understand what I just said, Naruto roared, spinning rapidly. Ichigo cried, what, I'm not stupid, you're stupid. Oh. Great comeback. Sarcastically exclaimed Naruto. Can we just go already? I don't want to get a freaking detention. Chad said, you mean another freaking detention? Naruto hissed, shut up Chad. Now let's leave everybody. A female Junin said, we can't let you leave. Kurenai was the one. Naruto faced her once more. With his fox ears perking up as he plotted their escape, Naruto questioned, and why not, human? Because the Hokage ordered us to bring you back. You're property of Konoha. You belong to us, replied Kakashi. With his eyes narrowing, Naruto questioned, like, as a pet, owning? Yes, was Kakashi's blank response. Naruto pivoted. As he made his way back to the school, Naruto said, hey Ichigo. I'm hungry. Can we go now? But what about? To which Naruto replied, leave them. Uryu, Ichigo, Orihime, and Chad came next. Hey! Exclaimed Kakashi as he ran in Naruto's direction. With his fingers spread wide and his palm half toward the ground and half toward Kakashi, Naruto turned and raised his right arm. With a growl, Naruto said, Aki Kaji. Red and orange flames erupted from the ground, and Naruto's hand started to glow blue. Naruto snarled, come after me again, and you will burn to a crisp. While Naruto's group waited for the bell to ring, Ichigo questioned, why do they keep coming after you? I don't know. I think they want me to come back to Konoha, but they want to treat me as property to the village. Probably want to lock me in a freaking cage and let kids poke me with a stupid stick. Naruto responded by tapping his fingers on his desk. Ichigo said, isn't that inhumane? Not to them. I'm a super powered animal in their eyes, not part human at all. They take my animal half, and judge me by that. So sticking me in a cage is acceptable. Naruto said quietly. Chad questioned, and you're not worried at all? Not really. I've got kick-ass friends, and this is my rightful home now. I belong here, and if I want to stay, I will. Replied Naruto. Up to the group, Uryu ran. He said, guys? We've got a problem. Naruto laughed. The only thing that qualifies as a problem to me is if the shinobi are now students of this class. Replied Naruto. Abruptly, the ninjas, clad in the school uniform, stepped into the classroom. According to Naruto, well shit. The following people came in. Sakura, Kiba, Gaara, Shikamaru, Tenten, Hinata, Neji, and Ino. Naruto complained, oh crap, this is just not my week. He raised his gaze to Ichigo. So, I helped you rescue Rukia from execution in Soul Society. I almost get killed by my own father. I die from poison, and I am still at risk of dying from the poison. And this happens? Damn it Kami. Why don't you just hit me with a flying rabid squirrel? Naruto screamed. Then, out of nowhere, a flying squirrel the size of a bowling ball attacked Naruto's head. Naruto screamed and clawed at his face as the squirrel screamed like a dying monkey and he fell back in his chair. At last, the squirrel flew out the window and out of Naruto's face. With his teeth growing back out of his mouth, Naruto leaned out the window. Naruto said, stupid ass squirrel. He raised his gaze to the heavens. Oh ha ha Kami, exclaimed Naruto. He ignored the burning sensation from the numerous cuts on his face and went back to his desk to sit down. Naruto snarled, stupid dumb ass squirrel. On the desk in front of Naruto, Ichigo set a box of band-aids. He said, here. They caught Naruto's attention. Naruto questioned, what are they? Oh come on. You can't tell me that you've never seen band-aids before, Ichigo murmured. Nope. Never, Naruto said with a smile. Ichigo let out a groan. He turned and took a seat at his desk, which was next to Naruto's. Naruto surveyed his surroundings. Orihime sat on his lower left, Uryu on his lower right, Ichigo on his left, and Chad on his upper right. That left in front of him, behind him, on his right, and on his upper left. Some shinobi were able to encircle him because all those seats were empty. This was just right. To his left, Naruto leaned. As the shinobi observed him from the front of the class, Naruto went about his everyday business, whispering, Yo, Ichigo. Where's the teacher? I left a prank for her. Ichigo answered, I don't know. I heard she quit though. Naruto moaned and slammed his head against the desk, saying, what? That means I need to start over with the prank meter with the new teacher. Tatsuki stated from the window, you'll have it back up to deportation in about 2 days. Everyone in the class started laughing. Naruto leapt to his feet. Excuse me, Ms. Tatsuki. I headed up to kill in a dark alley and then hide the body with the last teacher. Naruto screamed. With his fist hammering into his chest, Naruto declared, and I shall get it up to that again. Keigo leapt to his feet. Keigo yelled, I'll have it up to throw into outer space in 5 minutes, and was rushing to the front of the room. Naruto popped his foot out of the window he was standing next to. Naruto's foot was jumped over by Keigo. Keigo stood in front of the class and exclaimed, "Ha! You won't trip me again." With success, Naruto smiled. Naruto stated, and rabid foxes in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A pack of rabid foxes attacked Keigo as the ceiling above him suddenly opened up. As he sat back in his seat and watched Keigo run in circles with the foxes foaming their mouths behind him, Naruto remarked, "That was meant for the teacher, but it works this way too." Naruto acknowledged, what the hell? That's funny." "How the hell did you get the foxes in the ceiling?" asked Uryu. Naruto turned to face the Quincy and remarked, "I have my ways." Tatsuki inquired, "And those ways are?" Naruto slammed his fist into his desk and yelled, "I said they're my ways, damn it." Drawing out the last part of his sentence, Naruto hissed, "Not your RRRRRRRSSSSS." Tatsuki took a step back. She sat down slowly and muttered, "Fine, it's yours." With a triumphant, "Exactly," Naruto returned to his seat. According to Ichigo, "Face it, Naruto, nothing belongs to you." Naruto exclaimed, "Yaha! Everything belongs to me." He extended his arms. Naruto's deep voice roared, "Come to me, my loyal subjects." No one shifted. Naruto started sobbing uncontrollably. "My world's dead," cried Naruto. "No, we just don't listen to you because you don't own us," Ichigo barked. Naruto screamed into the air and threw back his head. Naruto exclaimed, "Why must my subjects be deaf?" Ichigo attempted to strike Naruto in the head, but Naruto reached him first and used a mallet to smash his face in. Naruto put another, out of commission, sign on Ichigo's head and kept crying in private. Tatsuki inquired, "How many of those signs do you have?" Naruto said, "A lot." Suddenly, he stopped crying. The door opened abruptly, and Naruto hoped he wouldn't see the two people who entered. Yamato and Kakashi. "After much consideration, I chose these two, and although I wanted to close the chapter here, I chose to continue because I adore you all so much. Good morning, class. Your last teacher quit, so I am your new teacher, and this is my assistant. My name is Mr. Kakashi, and this is Mr. Yamato." Kakashi responded. Naruto lowered his head and gave a silent, menacing growl. Ichigo muttered, "What's wrong, Naruto?" "Those two are from Konoha. They're Junin. One of them can basically paralyze fox demons, and the other can use many different attacks," replied Naruto. Ichigo muttered, "Which one can paralyze you?" Naruto whispered, "Yamato." Ichigo said, "The one that's staring at you?" Naruto turned slowly and menacingly to Ichigo. Naruto questioned, "What do you think, dipshit?" Ichigo immediately retreated. "I'm hoping that this year will be filled with fun and joy. Now allow me to introduce our 8 new students. Haruno Sakura, Inazuka Kiba, Gaara, Nara Shikamaru, Tenten, Hyuga Hanada, Hyuga Neji, and Yamanaka Ino." Kakashi continued. The new students in the group bowed. Everyone sat down, and to Naruto's horror, they were all encircling him. The words, "Let us start class," came from Kakashi. Naruto stamped his foot and screamed, "Thank God, I thought class would never end. Just sitting in there, with Yamato staring at me, was torture," as his group approached their roof. Uryu said, "He was staring at you?" Naruto deadpanned, "Yeah." Naruto let out a joyful squeal as they opened the door to the rooftop. He had left his big exercise ball on the roof. Right away, Naruto used the exercise ball to balance on his left hand. According to Naruto, "Hand me stuff." The others started giving Naruto items like tables, chairs, and lunchboxes right away. Before long, Naruto was able to hold up a few light objects and balance objects 15 feet high on his feet. Naruto's mind barrier was suddenly struck by a sharp mind probe. Fortunately, Naruto was still focused enough to maintain the strength of his mind barrier as he screamed and fell to the ground. Naruto shouted, "What the hell is a Yamanaka doing on my roof?" as he got up. Ichigo questioned, "What are you talking about?" The gang of ninja emerged from the darkness. Abruptly, Naruto rose with ease, precisely mimicking Shikamaru's motions. About 20 feet from Naruto, the group came to a stop. Ichigo hissed, "What are you doing, Naruto? Get away from them." Naruto answered, "I can't. The Nara clan specializes in shadow possession. English? Inquired Ichigo. The boy with his hands in the weird hand form can control my movements, snapped Naruto. Oh, Naruto said, humans, would you mind explaining why you're on my roof? Sakura answered, we've come to take you home. Ah, I'm touched. I really am. Thanks for bringing me home. You can go now. This is my home, dumb shits. Naruto sighed. Kiba said, the home you were born in. I was born in the forest, not in Konoha. Either I live in the forest, or I live here, where I have friends. Naruto replied. The shadow that ran from Naruto's feet to Shikamaru's feet flashed red, then glared red all at once. Before it returned to black, a blood-red eye flashed into the vast shadow. Slowly, Naruto's arm moved behind him and drew a dagger. After that, Shikamaru moved and produced a kunai. He had horror in his eyes. For example, what are you doing, Ino? Shikamaru retorted, I'm not doing anything. He's controlling me movements. With their kunai ready, the ninja group leapt at Naruto. The ninja continued to approach even after Ichigo and his companions leapt in front of Naruto. Naruto placed the dagger's tip against his chest, covering his heart. Stop, commanded Naruto. The ninjas halted. Kiba laughed and said, you wouldn't kill yourself. Only a few centimeters remained after Naruto drove the dagger into his chest. Be cautious. That dagger will pierce your heart if you drive it in a few more centimeters. Kyuubi issued a warning. Naruto coughed up blood and gave a mental nod. In response, Naruto said, I would. With horror in their eyes, Ichigo and the others gazed at Naruto. Kiba made the stupid decision to move forward. Naruto pressed the blade closer, but his heart would be pierced if he advanced even half a centimeter. Steam slowly rose from the wound as Naruto withdrew the blade from his chest. Once more, the ninja charged forward. Naruto thrust the dagger all the way into his stomach's left side this time. Bending instantly in half, he grasped the dagger around his stomach. That was dumb, for ass. Naruto collapsed to his knees in shock. Ichigo and his companions gaped in dismay. When Naruto's stomach was severely injured, he always acted strangely. Naruto spilled blood through his fingers and fell onto his side, complaining, what the hell was I thinking? He isn't the same as me. Naruto said, Ichigo? Can you help me to your house? In an instant, Chad lifted Naruto into his embrace. Gently, shouted Naruto. What happened now? Exclaimed Isshin. The gang that attacked me before wanted revenge, took my own knife, and stabbed me in the chest and stomach. Replied Naruto. Sakura, who was fortunate enough to have some knowledge of medical jutsu, had already healed Shikamaru. Naruto was placed on one of the clinic's medical beds by Chad. Then Isshin said, where's the dagger? After taking the bloody blade from his pocket, Naruto gave it to Isshin. Naruto had placed a hat on his head after the genjutsu covering his ears had fallen on the way back to the clinic. Naruto had given the Konoha ninja the slip when they attempted to follow him home. Yuzu and Karen came into the room. Karen said, great. What did he do now? Ichigo answered, stupid gang again. Oh yeah, Naruto. I did some digging on your family, to get a hold of them to tell them that you were here with us, and found that there was no such family. Do you even have a family? Isshin inquired. Naruto gave a nod. Naruto answered, yes, and no they're dead. With a gesture for Naruto to take off his bloody shirt, Isshin said, exactly my point. And that brings on another question. However, Naruto refused to do so. The next chapter would only be 5 lines long if I ended this chapter here, but you will never understand how much I want to say. I want to adopt you. So, happy birthday. Naruto froze, his face looking as if it were too good to be true. Then his face dropped. You will never know how much I want to be your adopted son. I love your family, I really do. You look like you're such happy family. But, I can't. I wouldn't belong. Naruto was looking down. Uryu, Chad, and Orihime had gone to McDonald's for lunch, which made Naruto very happy. It was a rather sentimental moment. We could make you feel like you belong here. That's what's family's for, Yuzu replied, please. I heard Ichigo say that you were teaching him to fight hand-to-hand combat. You could teach me that, please? Karen pleaded. Naruto cast his gaze downward. He needed to inform them. He had also. Naruto muttered, a demon doesn't belong with humans. Isshin questioned, demons? Humans? What are you talking about? Ichigo hissed, Naruto. Shut up. Naruto gave a headshake. Isshin repeated, Naruto? What are you talking about? Naruto. Don't do it, Ichigo growled once more. Naruto. Naruto. Ichigo grabbed Naruto's wrist as he slowly reached up for the hat. Ichigo growled, Naruto. Pay attention to what you're doing. Ichigo flinched, retreating his hand as steam rose from Naruto's wrist. It was charred. Naruto held onto the hat. Naruto tore the hat off his head, exposing the white ears. What do I mean? I mean a demon can't exist in the same family as a human. I can't live with a human family. Why? He asked. Naruto's claws and fangs grew back, and his pupils were slit once more. Because I am a demon. A clerk asked, and you agree with this? With his black head covering on the verge of falling off, Naruto nodded. The clerk handed Naruto and Isshin a thin stack of paper and said, okay. I need to both to fill out this paperwork. With Isshin, Ichigo, Karen, and Yuzu in tow, Naruto strode into the back private room. Naruto sat at a table in the corner and moaned, "Ah, there's paperwork?" With his fox ears protruding from his hair, Naruto removed the hat from his head. Ichigo, who was seated in a chair across from him in case the blonde needed assistance, answered, "There's always paperwork in adoption." Gazing at the other boy, Naruto exclaimed, "Ichigo, I know how to write." Yuzu and Karen were staring at him when he turned to face them. "What? Still freaking out over the whole demon.fox.ear thing?" replied Naruto. Ichigo added, "Hey, don't forget, they fainted." Naruto faced him once more. Naruto came back and said, "You all did. Hey, those three didn't know you were a super powered fox, and I was surprised you actually did that." Ichigo screamed. With a shrug, Naruto started filling out his paperwork. After completing the forms for his current name and his intended name following adoption, Naruto burst out laughing. Naruto chuckled, "Wow, my name's really long now." Together with Ichigo, Isshin questioned, "Really? What is it?" Naruto chuckled and said, "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze Kurosaki." Isshin stopped. Isshin inquired, "You are in the Uzumaki and Namikaze families?" Naruto gave a nod. "Yeah. Why?" inquired Naruto. In response, Isshin said, "No reason. Was there any chance he was related to those two?" Isshin pondered. Naruto resumed completing the paperwork. Birth date: October 10th, 15 years old. Mother of birth: Kushina Uzumaki. Minato Namikaze is the birth father. Parents .be Isshin Kurosaki. Ichigo Kurosaki, Yuzu Kurosaki, and Karen Kurosaki are the new siblings. Naruto moaned in his head, "This would take a very long time." Naruto exclaimed, "I swear." That pen was stuck in my hand, as the newly established Kurosaki family strode into the house. In order to relieve pressure on his ears and stop them from being mashed, Naruto removed the hat from his head. "You also said that your ears could pick up a mouse walking from 50 miles away, and yet you couldn't hear me whispering," Ichigo responded. "I could, but after 2 hours of you whispering random stuff to me, I just tuned you out," said Naruto. Naruto leapt over the couch and slammed the door open when there was a sudden knock. When he heard Isshin, Yuzu, and Karen dive at Naruto, the blonde sidestepped, turned his ears around. Naruto exclaimed, "Hi Uryu, Shad, Orihime." With a smile. Uryu leapt forward and put his hands over Naruto's ears. He yelled, "Nothing to see here," to the Kurosaki members who were lying on the ground. "Uryu, I showed them." Naruto stopped talking. Uryu said, stepping back, "Oh." Naruto glanced at Isshin below. Naruto said, "Mr. Kurosaki, can they come in?" Isshin leapt to his feet. Isshin said, "You can call me Dad now, you know." Naruto gave him a look. He sighed and turned to leave, saying, "Never mind." Uryu, Shad, and Orihime entered and said, "Come on in." Orihime inquired, "What did he mean by Dad?" "Oh yeah, we forgot to tell you. Yesterday, Isshin offered to adopt me," replied Naruto. As the group made their way to Ichigo's room, Uryu whispered, "Did you talk with your parents?" "Yeah. I called them from Soul Society last night and asked them what they thought. They said that they would like for me to have a family, so, here I am. Having a freakishly long name," Naruto said, extending his arms. The group was unaware that Karen had unintentionally overheard them. She whispered, "He talked to his parents. I thought they were dead, and what's Soul Society?" and started to follow them in silence. Silently, she pressed her ear to Ichigo's door and listened. Ichigo stated, "There's a more urgent matter than that though." Naruto questioned, "And what, may I ask, is more urgent than ramen?" "The people that keep coming after you. They know you're a demon, and they want you to come back to your home village. What are we going to do?" Ichigo responded. Naruto recommended that they buy ramen. A loud thud followed his comment. Ichigo shouted, "We aren't buying ramen, and why not?" inquired Naruto. "Because how will that help? What are we going to do? Offer them ramen to not come and lock you in a cage? Ichigo screamed. I was going to suggest that I make the ramen boiling hot, throw it on them, then call all the foxes from around the world to come and eat them, replied Naruto. Then there was silence. Uryu said, You're on crack, aren't you? To which Naruto answered, no, but I might be high on ramen fumes. That's not possible. You'd think that, wouldn't you? Until you find yourself dancing in circles, singing Mary Had a Little Lamb, replied Naruto. Ichigo reminded them, Guys, we have a matter at hands. Don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is gonna be alright, Naruto said. Naruto was struck in the head once more, as evidenced by the loud bang that followed. Ichigo yelled, Naruto, where the hell did you go? With his hair drooping from the water, Naruto emerged from the restroom. Shaking his head to remove the water, Naruto inquired, Have you ever gotten your head stuck in a sink? Ichigo inquired, How do you get your head stuck in a sink? I don't know. Naruto answered reluctantly. Ichigo's complaint was, Good to know. Ichigo said, Come on. School's starting in a few minutes. Naruto screamed that they were so late that he immediately fled the house. Ichigo trailed behind, omitting the yelling. They were racing through the streets when all of a sudden there was a loud bang. Then there was screaming. Naruto flew out of his body after skidding to a stop. Naruto snarled, Hollow. Ichigo left Kon to handle his own body after he flew from it. Ichigo hurried after the Kitsune boy and inquired, Where? Naruto deadpanned, Park. Abruptly, Ichigo and Naruto were flung into the park after being hoisted into the air. As it happened, it had been the lion. Octopus Hollow's tentacles. Rakshaya and Zangetsu were drawn by Naruto and Ichigo as they raised their bodies off the ground. Kakashi commanded, Attack, and plunged into the hollow. The hollow was being attacked by the ninjas from the Hidden Islands, but they were having a terrible time. Naruto shook his head and said, What are they thinking? Only a Shinigami can defeat a hollow. Naruto said, Do you mind if I take the first hit? Ichigo said, Go ahead, but leave some for me. Naruto sprang forward, his sword poised to strike, and declared, No promises. When Naruto let out a battle cry, the ninja and the hollow took notice. Swinging his blade downward, Naruto flung off one of the lion's numerous tentacles. 30 feet from the hollow, Naruto touched down. With his left hand on his hip and the blade resting on his shoulder, Naruto complained, I mean to whack your head off. The hollow gasped and retreated. A Shinigami. But, there aren't supposed to be any Shinigami here. You're all supposed to be in Soul Society. The hollow was gasping. Well, we aren't, so that leaves my schedule open to whoop your ass. Ichigo, said Naruto. Almost immediately, Ichigo rushed into combat and swung Zangetsu. Naruto saw a weakness. Ichigo, rotate Zangetsu 15 degrees to the left, and raise it 2 inches, said Naruto. With a shift of his blade, Ichigo cut the paw off the right leg of the hollow. Ichigo would have been in the precise area of the hollow's attacks if he had kept running in that direction in the first place, even though he would have nearly struck the hollow's mask. With a smile, Naruto bounded ahead. Ichigo was now in a position to instruct Naruto. Naruto, build Ritsu, and use Getsuga Tensho with Rakshaya. You can cut off his hind legs that way, Ichigo yelled. Naruto halted in his tracks and yelled, K, before lifting Rakshaya. The blade of Rakshaya started to glow purple. Naruto lowered the blade. Naruto roared, Getsuga Tensho, as the dark purple attack surged forward and tore off the hollow's hind legs. The ninjas were left staring in awe. The hollow suddenly leapt forward, its mouth wide open to show off its razor-sharp teeth. And Sakura was its direct target. Rushing forward, Naruto leapt between the hollow and Sakura. Blood splattered everywhere as the teeth sank into his shoulders, back, neck, and chest. The hollow's teeth missed Naruto's head because Rakshaya was wedged in front of him. Naruto moaned, Idiot! Move! Sakura's eyes went wide as she fell backward. Splashes of Naruto's red blood splattered all over her. Some of Naruto's blood was a stunning shade of gold. The demon's blood. The big sword skidded away as the hollow's paw suddenly emerged and batted Rakshaya away. Naruto was carried by the hollow as it reared backward. As the long fangs dug deeper into Naruto's body, the blonde suppressed a roar of pain. Naruto! Exclaimed Ichigo. Naruto's body went limp and his eyes closed. Ichigo screamed, Damn it, Naruto! Stay awake! He lowered his sword. Getsunga Tensho! Yelled Ichigo. The lion's jaws parted and he roared as the attack sliced through the middle of his body. We all gasped in horror at what we saw. The lion's lower teeth had penetrated all the way through Naruto's body. With his claws poised to pierce Naruto's throat, the lion smashed him out of his mouth and pinned him to the ground. It roared, "Back away, or he dies." Weakly, Naruto opened his eyes and held up his arm, palm out. Aki Kaji! Naruto exclaimed angrily. His palm exploded with fire, shattering the hollow's mask. After roaring, the hollow disappeared in black smoke. Naruto closed his eyes and went limp once more after saying, "Ha! I win." In a moment, Ichigo was by his side. "Ichigo!" A woman's voice exclaimed. With Uryu, Chad, and Yoruichi transformed into cats, Orihime dashed into the park's secret area. Uryu inquired, "What happened?" Naruto got in the way of the hollow when it was attacking one of the ninjas. Ichigo responded. He turned his gaze to Orihime. "Do you think you can heal him?" The hollow pierced him all the way through, advised Ichigo. Orihime knelt down after nodding. When Sakura attempted to advance, Ichigo blocked her path. With a growl, Ichigo said, "Back off." Yoruichi said, "What would Naruto do in a time like this?" "Oh, he would growl." He then arched his back and hissed. "In case you haven't figured it out yet, I call her a guy when she's in cat form." Orihime muttered, "Soden Kishan, SP. I reject." The renowned orange screen hung over Naruto's body, and almost instantly, his skin started to regenerate at a remarkable rate, faster than anyone else's when Orihime was healing. The holes in Naruto's kimono top and the blood that covered him and the ground were soon the only signs that he had been hurt. Orihime stated, "We need to get him back to his body." A strange voice said, "Already here." They pivoted. Naruto's body was there, looking more feral and with blood-red eyes. "How is that possible, I might ask? You don't have a mod soul," Uryu replied. "According to Naruto, we're special. Can I let him back into his body, or not?" "Sure," Ichigo responded. Naruto's soul appeared to melt back into his body as his body lay down. His eyes did not open again, and his appearance returned to normal. Ichigo returned to the body that Naruto had given him. Ichigo inquired, "When's he going to wake up?" To which Orihime replied, "I don't know. Why do you care so much for him? Why do you act like you like him? He's a monster." Kakashi replied. Ichigo gave Naruto a quick glance. "That may be so, but we don't act like we like him. We do like him. He's part of our group. He's our friend. My family adopted him, even though we all knew he was part demon. We don't care that he might be part monster. Unlike you, we look at his human side, the side that's fun, loving, joking, and the part we've come to know. Maybe you would know that, if you didn't want to turn him into a side show freak." Ichigo responded, and concluded with a scream. "That's right. We don't care if he's part animal, or part monster. He's our friend," Orihime continued. As soon as possible, the group resumed their conversation and watched Naruto. The ninjas, meanwhile, retreated. Neji muttered, "Now I feel uncomfortable forcing him to come back." Whispering, "And why is that?" Sasuke asked. "For now, he remains with them. Look at his friends. And he was adopted for Kami's sake. What kind of shinobi would we be if we took him away from these people?" Neji responded. Kurenai added, Ones that are following orders?" Hinata stated, I agree with Neji. As Sakura put it, so do I." Sasuke remarked, "You're just saying that because he saved you." Sakura complained, "Oh, shut up." A loud slapping sound was heard abruptly, and then there was a great deal of laughter. "Ha! 109. Naruto exclaimed, sitting up abruptly and laughing uncontrollably. Uryu remarked, "I knew that would wake you up." Ichigo gave the Quincy a scowl. Ichigo growled, "So, you made me one number closer to losing the bet." Okay, so I remember frying the hollow, but when the hell did I get back in my body?" asked Naruto. Chad deadpanned to say, "It came to you." Naruto gave a shrug. He sighed and said, "Good enough." Naruto was suddenly confronted by the massive ninja group, and his friends almost instantly shifted into a defensive position. Kakashi took a step forward. "We can see now that we can't take you away from your new family and friends. We'll let you stay here." Kakashi responded. Grunting, Naruto stood. "No, the Hokage will just send Anbu after me. I'm going to come with, but only if I'm allowed to travel between the Ninja Islands and Karakura whenever I wish," Naruto replied. Kakashi said, "Okay." Naruto smiled. Naruto chuckled to himself after saying, "Good. Because Mr. Kurosaki would freak if his adoptive son is Mia." Out of nowhere, a door materialized, and a black-haired girl emerge. She had a sword by her side and was wearing the Shinigami outfit. Everyone in the large group looked at her. She grinned as she turned to face Ichigo and Naruto. "Good to see you again. I never got to thank both of you. You died, came back to life, then left, Naruto." The child replied. The rest of Naruto's group just gaped. "Rukia? I don't see anything. I don't see anything. I don't see." Naruto slammed his fist into Ichigo's head, yelling, "I said, there's a freaking cloaking device, dumbshit." Rukia gazed at the unconscious mass below. She had made the decision to accompany Naruto to the Ninja Islands after she had reached the living world. The King of Soul Society was the only Shinigami who had ever seen the Ninja Islands. Her first task had been to retrieve a Gigai from Urahara. Once they were on the boat, Naruto had changed back into his purple hakama and white kimono top. "Is this really what your life has been like since you left?" asked Rukia. Naruto sighed as he rubbed his hot ears and stuck his hand under the hat covering his fox ears while gazing back at the slowly dwindling island of Japan. In response, Naruto said, "Yes. Almost." As though anticipating something, he squinted as he gazed at the horizon. Ichigo rubbed his head and got back up. Ichigo inquired, "How much further, Snaggletooth?" "Until we get past the cloaking." "Not that much further. About another 2 seconds," replied Naruto. Japan and the vast territory of the Ninja Islands vanished in an instant. Ichigo and Rukia gazed in wonder. Large flocks of birds were flying through the air almost immediately. On the nearby islands, children dressed as though they were from the past were seen playing, laughing, and practicing swordplay while running around with sticks. Dolphins squeaked as they lined up next to the boat. Rukia mumbled, "This place is amazing." "That's what you think from here, but just wait until you live here and see the wars here," replied Naruto. "I wonder if they're okay." Sakura walked up and asked, "Who?" "The foxes I grew up with." Sakura stated that, "You can visit them on the way there." Naruto remarked, "Good. They're probably worried." He yawned and his fox ears twitched. Naruto complained and dove into the water, saying, "This boat is too slow." He changed into a gigantic sea serpent in mid-jump, positioned himself underwater, and launched the boat forward, nearly toppling the Shinigami and ninja group. "Still, I don't think you really had to go that fast," Ichigo replied. Ignoring Ichigo's words, Naruto kept moving forward. He was too preoccupied with his history. Rewind. A pair of foxes walked alongside a small white fox. The she-dot fox was admired by the younger fox. The fox said, "Where are we going today, Mom?" The woman answered, "Today, Naruto, I'm going to show you the way to the coast of Fire Country." Naruto kept bouncing around beside Saya, the fox. Naruto asked abruptly, "Mom, when's the fox hunt again?" Saya said, "In a few months." Naruto let out a sigh. Suddenly, the two arrived at the meeting point of the land and the sea, a vast coast. "Cool," exclaimed Naruto. "This is the coast of Fire Country. Know it well, because someday, you might need to come here," Saya replied. End of flashback. When he finally saw Ichigo wave his hand in front of Naruto's face, Naruto flinched. Ichigo asked, "Are you okay? You zoned out again." Naruto said, "I did?" with a startled expression. Rukia said, "You need to pay more attention." Naruto remarked, "Says you, who almost let yourself be killed." But Rukia said, "You're the one that allowed yourself to die, though." Naruto said, "Shut up." Ichigo questioned, "Naruto, what's this scroll for anyway?" "You're the one who found it on the ground, don't ask me," Naruto replied. A flashback. "Mom, what's this?" inquired Naruto. "It's called a scroll. It contains instructions on how to use ninja jutsu," Saya responded. Naruto said, "Okay, what do I do with it?" "Learn from it. It might come in handy someday, to know how to fight," Saya replied. The end of the flashback. The recollection made Naruto smile. However, it happened a few days later. A flashback. As Naruto finished reading the scroll his mother had given him, his mother unexpectedly collapsed into the clearing, covered in blood. "Mom!" exclaimed Naruto, hurrying to her side. "What happened?" "I don't know. 1 minute I was fine, the next," Saya replied. With tears in his eyes, Naruto pleaded, "Mom, stay with me." "Naruto, before I go, you need to know, I'm not your mom. You're a Hanyu, half fox, half human. Your parents were human, and lived in Konoha. I just took you in, after the Kyuubi was sealed inside you," Saya replied. Naruto questioned, "What do you mean? How did you find out?" Saya said with a feeble smile, "I'm your adoptive mother," and Kyuubi appeared in chakra form. With those words, Saya's eyes permanently closed. Goodbye, Naruto. Mom? Mom? M-O-M? The end of the flashback? Naruto could still recall that day. Naruto suddenly smiled as his nose and ears twitched. He took Ichigo and Rukia by the wrists and dragged them into the bushes. Be back in a minute. Naruto asked the ninjas in return. Ichigo said, "Where are you bringing us?" Naruto yelled, "Just don't freak out when this happens." As they abruptly changed into tiny foxes, with Ichigo turning neon orange, Rukia black, and Naruto in his tiny, one-tailed, white fox form. Ichigo exclaimed, "What the hell?" as he was shocked to find his legs still moving. Naruto shouted, "I told you not to freak out." As the three ran, he howled and leaned his head back. At that moment, it appeared as though hundreds of eyes were watching Naruto and the others. At Naruto's sides, orange and black foxes suddenly materialized and began running in time with the white fox. The massive pack of foxes entered a clearing and came to a halt. All of the foxes gathered around Naruto, beaming. One of the mature foxes exclaimed, "We heard you died, you idiot." "Apparently not," chuckled Naruto. Abruptly, a light orange fox tackled Naruto. "You're okay." Naruto got back to his feet and remarked, "We just covered this Yuru." He gave Rukia and Ichigo a nod. "That's Ichigo, and that's Rukia. They're my friends from the normal world." "Oh, and they're humans," Naruto replied. One of the adult foxes remarked, "Oh, so they're Normalians." Naruto sighed, "Yes. They're Normalians, but don't bite them, we can't stay long. Some shinobi convinced me to go to Konoha for a while, until I can go back to the normal world again. But I just wanted you all to know that I was fine, and that I would be checking in on you frequently," Naruto replied. And Yuru said, "Fine. But why are you going to Konoha?" "It was either that, or be chased by Anbu, so I chose to just come," replied Naruto. Rukia muttered, "Naruto, what are the foxes saying? You're just barking." "If you guys would open your ears, you would understand them," said Naruto. Rukia's and Ichigo's fox ears perked up. In fox tongue, Naruto questioned, "Can you understand me now?" Both of them gave a stupid nod. "Good. Rukia, would you do me a favor? Don't speak of anything you saw here to anyone but me and Ichigo, okay? That goes for you too, Ichigo. I don't want anyone to know. They would ruin life here. If you wish to tell anyone, you need to ask me first, and only tell the person if I agree to it." Naruto replied. Their ears flopping, they nodded stupidly once more. Naruto grinned. "Good to know that you understand. Fox boy?" a voice called out. Naruto snarled. Naruto complained, "I still can't say my freaking names." The other foxes caught his attention. Yuru waved his tail as Naruto left with Ichigo and Rukia, saying, "Humans can be so stupid sometimes. I gotta go." The three of them ran back to the group and came out of the bushes still in their fox forms, while the ninjas stared at them in awe as Naruto nodded at them and changed them back into humans. Naruto then melted into his human form and sat on the ground in a blank state. "Never again do that." Ichigo let out a moan and spun around to make sure he had no tail. Rukia added, "At least without warning us." Naruto shrugged and got to his feet. "All right." Naruto answered, "As long as you don't act as stupid as you two did when I turned into a fox." "And why would you wish to change us back into foxes?" Ichigo inquired. Naruto grinned back, "Because it's fun, and it's my thing." "Maybe we can just go to Konoha now?" Yamato inquired, and Naruto shrugged. "All right. Lead the way, Woody." Naruto replied happily. Yamato glared, but began to walk back down the road, with Naruto, Ichigo, and Rukia following. Suddenly, out of the trees, appeared a huge gate. Naruto stared up at the swirl symbol on it. "Welcome to Konoha." "This is a village of ninjas?" Ichigo and Rukia yelled, and Naruto nodded. They gazed around, taking in the sights. Ninjas moving across buildings in shadow blur mode. Other ninjas moving through the streets buying different ninja tools, and small children running through the streets, laughing and hurling cardboard shuriken at one another. Naruto entered through the gate, where the large group of shinobi were standing. The guards gaped as he slid past the guard post at the gate, and suddenly, shackles were placed around his wrist and ankles, and a metal collar around his neck. Naruto deadpanned, "And this is why I didn't want to come back." Then one of the guards started jabbing Naruto in the forehead. Naruto smiled, opened his jaws, and blew a river of fire onto the guard's hand, causing him to recoil. He said, "He doesn't look as good as the reports say." Naruto picked the shackles locks and let them drop to the ground. "Good attempt." Sakura rushed up to Naruto, who was wearing a dark purple bandana over his fox ears. "But I'm not some animal to put in a cage," Naruto growled, and he and Ichigo and Rukia marched off, following the ninja. You have 3 days until you meet with the Hokage, according to Kakashi. Sensei. Sakura said, you have those 3 days to unwind and explore Konoha. She then extracted a black dog collar with silver spikes from her pockets and gave it to Naruto, saying, this is just a welcome present from Team 7. Naruto accepted the collar and gazed at it. Thanks. Naruto stated, and Sakura, trying to conceal her blush, ran off in a random direction. Despite the fact that the boy was a crossbreed, she had to admit that he was cute. Naruto clipped the collar around his neck and turned it to make it more comfortable, then turned to Ichigo and Rukia and grinned broadly. How'd I look? Naruto inquired. According to Ichigo, like a dog. Fox. Naruto laughed, there's a reason for that. Want me to show you around Konoha? I've previously been in here. Get a tour of a ninja village? Indeed. Naruto rolled his eyes as Rukia screamed. All right. We just entered through the gate, of course, Naruto said, before starting to move through the streets. Naruto gestured back to the gate and said, this is the main street of Konoha, and usually the most crowded. Many visitors and villagers enter and leave every day. This is a street that would be both a lot of fun and a lot of danger on the day of the festival. This street also has the market, Naruto remarked. Festival? When Rukia asked, Naruto tensed up but continued to move. Yes. The celebration of this village's rescue from a monster by the 4th Hokage. The Yondaime are remembered on that day. The fox hunt happens at that point, Naruto retorted. Oh, the hunt for the fox, Ichigo said, you discussed that. Naruto nodded. Naruto complained, the days of hiding, blah blah blah. He turned left right away and led the group to a bend in the road. Naruto paused and tapped his foot, asking, where should we go first? I'll show you what this village calls the Deep Green Hill, for some amusing reason, and the Forest of Death, Naruto said, shrugging and turning to the left. Death Forest? Are we truly interested in going there? Ichigo inquired, and Naruto turned, grinning a little. Not at all. As they passed a man with long white hair and entered a small wooden gate, Naruto remarked, but it's one awesome place. What's in the Forest of Death, Naruto? Rukia inquired. Naruto answered, oh, giant bugs, bloodthirsty bats, the usual stuff. Naruto. How on earth is that typical? Ichigo shouted as he sprinted after the blonde, who turned around with wide eyes. He thought. Naruto? Naruto Uzumaki? Naruto led the two to a steep cliff face and immediately started scaling it with small handholds, swinging back and forth and hanging 20 feet above Ichigo and Rukia with one hand. You guys coming? Naruto inquired. How? Rukia and Ichigo yelled. Ascent, Ichigo and Rukia moaned and started to slowly climb after the blonde Kitsune Han-yu as Naruto responded and started to swing back up the mountain, laughing as he went. The Forest of Death is this. When a 3-headed wolf the size of a dump truck crashed against the chain link fence, snarling, drooling, and snapping its jaws, Ichigo and Rukia fell back, while Naruto stood tall. It doesn't look as scary as you said it was, Ichigo said. Naruto put his fingers in his mouth and whistled, high and long. Naruto spoke with a maniacal grin and remarked, apparently, you're afraid of Fluffy. Fluffy? Rukia and Ichigo shouted. Fluffy, yes. Down Fluffy. From behind the fence, Naruto patted his nose and said, good boy. The wolf sat down, panting joyfully and wagging his gray tail. Is he your pet? Naruto nodded when Rukia asked. Yes. I discovered him being mistreated by some hunters who were prepared to murder him. Naruto turned and started to leave, saying, come. I saved him and brought him here. I want to show you a lot. Naruto pointed to the long row of training fields and remarked, and this is the training grounds. Ichigo muttered as he gazed at the trees and ground that were scarred from years of ninja training. Wow. So, this is where ninjas actually train? Rukia inquired, and Naruto nodded before guiding them to a massive memorial stone. And the memorial is this. It was created to honor the ninjas who lost their lives in the monster attack 15 years ago, Naruto stated. What specifically was the attacking monster? Ichigo posed the question, and Naruto feigned not to hear. Come on. Naruto led the two up a wide mountain path and said, I need to show you this amazing view. Suddenly, they reached a massive cliff, and the entire Konoha village and the setting sun were visible beyond its edge. Naruto grinned as Rukia exhaled, this is amazing. Yes. Naruto answered, I used to come up here with Saya-chan all the time. Saya-chan? Rukia inquired. Have you forgotten already? Ichigo murmured. Saya was the fox that reared him. Naruto took a seat on the ground. We would always come out here, sometimes with the other foxes, and just sit here, listening to the village and their activities, replied Naruto. What sort of activity were you aware of? Ichigo inquired, and Naruto gave him a wide-eyed stare. God damn it. Greetings, Mr. Pervert, Naruto said, beaming maniacally. I didn't mean to say that, Ichigo stumbled. I understand. Naruto answered, I'm just playing with you. Ichigo scowled at the blonde while crossing his arms. Again, what mountain are we on? Rukia inquired. Did you guys see the Hokage monument, on the cliff face? Replied Naruto. Together, they said, no, well, on the cliff face, are the faces of the 4 past Hokages of Konoha, carved by the workers of the village. Naruto replied, and that's the mountain we're standing on. Naruto stood up and dusted off his hakama, saying, oh. Come on. The sun is going to be gone in a few minutes, Naruto replied. Naruto received cruel and disgusting looks as the trio strolled through Konoha. Naruto flinched when a man suddenly ran up and spat in his face. After smashing a sake bottle on Naruto's head, the man fled once more. Naruto picked glass fragments from his hair and forehead and wiped the spit from his face. Naruto complained, ow. 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 Ow, as he withdrew the glass from his skin. As Rukia, Ichigo, and Naruto strolled through the village, the two continued to observe the shady glances Naruto was getting. The blonde appeared to be oblivious. Or give a damn. Sakura hurried up and gave Naruto a key. She said, this is to your apartment. Complex A, and took off running once more. With a shrug, Naruto scanned the area for his Konoha residence. Naruto looked around his spacious apartment and remarked, hey. This is cool. Together, there were 6 bedrooms, each furnished with a dresser, window, and bed. Naruto leapt onto the bed after running into the room at the end of the hallway. Mine, shouted Naruto. Choose a room, and it'll be yours for whenever you come here with me. Naruto replied. Ichigo selected the room on the left, across the hall from Rukia's, while Rukia claimed the room to Naruto's right. In a puff of smoke, metal signs bearing their names appeared on the doors to Rukia's, Ichigo's, and Naruto's rooms. Naruto smiled and crossed his fingers into a hand seal. Ichigo gazed at his sign, which featured a chibi Ichigo holding up a sign that read, Peace Hand. Ichigo regarded Ichigo with a sardonic look. Ichigo exclaimed, oh ha ha. A copy of Zangetsu formed the I at the beginning of his name, and when Naruto smiled, the sign changed to read, Ichigo. A red 9-tailed fox formed the U on Naruto's sign, while a white fox with a purple tipped tail formed the O. Naruto's name was highlighted in a copy of Rakshaya. The top left corner of the R on Rukia's sign featured a hell butterfly perched atop vines with stray green leaves and flowers. Her entire name was actually derived from the vines. Naruto said, there, better, as he left his room. Rukia said astutely, if you ask me, there are a lot of rooms. Sarcastically, Naruto took a pan out of one of the cabinets beneath the kitchen counters and remarked, wow. Good observation. Naruto turned and held up the pans in his hands while smiling. He said, who wants ramen? Ichigo questioned, seriously, is that all you eat? Naruto narrowed his eyes and stared at him. Naruto answered, maybe. Rukia replied, in that case, yes please. With a smile, Naruto started to boil water. Rukia said, hey Naruto? Yes Rukia. Answered Naruto. Why did that man hit you with a bottle, and spit at you? And what was with all of the dirty looks? Asked Rukia. Naruto stopped. Naruto remarked, well, the truth is. Naruto. Kyuubi complained. Naruto simply laughed while grinning broadly. 3 days, 3 freaking days, and not one word from that Hokage guy. Ichigo gasped. After shaking his head, Naruto resumed eating his cup of ramen. They said it would be 3 days until we could meet him, said Naruto. As soon as he finished speaking, someone knocked on his door. When Naruto opened the door, an Anbu was visible. The Anbu vanished in a whirl of leaves after saying, Hokage. Sama requests your presence. Naruto gazed at the location where the Anbu had been. Okay then. With his arm folded across his chest, Naruto uttered, so, you are the famed Hokage. And you are Uzumaki Naruto, the boy that we've been trying to catch for the past month, the Hokage replied. With a cunning grin, Naruto said, good to know I'm known. With a sigh, the Hokage opened the drawer beside him and took out a Konoha ninja headband made of dark purple fabric. After grabbing the headband, Naruto gazed at it. With his fox ears quivering beneath the bandana, Naruto questioned, and what's this for? The Sandaime said, "It's for you. You're now a ninja of Konoha." Slowly, Naruto said, "Okay." Sandaime went on, "You're on Squad 7 with Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Hitaki Kakashi. Kakashi wants you to meet them on the training ground." Slowly, Naruto tied his new ninja headband to his right shoulder and said, "K." He turned and gestured to Ichigo and Rukia. He said, "Come on." For the 5th time, Sasuke questioned, "What are we doing here?" Kakashi answered, "We're meeting our new teammate, as I told you 5 times. Sasuke obstinately turned his head away. "PFT. We've done just fine for 3 years without 3 genin. Besides, we have me. Who could be better than Uchiha?" Sasuke responded. Abruptly, there was a loud crash and snap, and then a shout of, "Damn it!" Kakashi's response was, "A fox demon." As he and his friends emerged from the tree line, Naruto remarked, "Hanyu, actually." Kakashi rolled his eyes and said, "Fine, Hanyu." Naruto surveyed the training area. Naruto inquired, "Any others here?" No," was Kakashi's answer. With a sigh, Naruto took the bandana off his head. He stuffed the bandana into one of his pockets and said, "Good. Why are there Normalians here with you? It's enough that we let them come here." Sasuke barked. Naruto cracked his knuckles and gave the Uchiha a scowl. "Watch what you say to my friends, boy. If there are any normal people here, it's you 3. These 2 are more powerful than you know," Naruto said. Sasuke sneered, "Really? Then let's see the power of the weaklings." With another scowl, Naruto raised his right hand, extending and bending its fingers into what appeared to be claws. "Say anything insulting about my friends that, frankly, could whoop your ass all the way to Hueco Mundo, and I will rip your tongue out of your mouth, rip your dick off, and make you eat them," Naruto said with a wicked grin. Sasuke swallowed and took a step back. Ichigo whispered, "Nice." Naruto returned the whisper, "Thanks." The blonde put his hands together in a clap. Naruto exclaimed, "Now, what the hell am I here for?" "Yes, well, now that we finally have 3 teammates in Squad 7, we'll be having a test. A bell test. You have to. Let me guess. You have 2 bells, the 3 of us have to come at you with the intent to kill, and take a bell. Whoever doesn't get a bell will demoted from genin back to academy student, and will never be a ninja," Naruto replied. Kakashi said, Right, how do you know that?" Naruto grinned. Naruto answered, "I'm just awesome like that." Kakashi said, What he said. Go." As the other 2 vanished in 2 separate directions, Naruto smiled. "Aren't you going to run or attack? And how do you know what was going to happen?" Kakashi responded. Naruto grinned broadly and raised 2 bells. Kakashi's mouth fell open. "You know, you really shouldn't leave a note attached to the bells what you're going to do," replied Naruto. How do you do that?" exclaimed Kakashi. "According to Naruto, I'm a demon, remember?" But, calling out, "Sasuke, Sakura, test is over," was Naruto. The 2 reappeared instantly, gaping at Naruto. Sasuke shouted, "How do you get the bells?" Sakura moaned, "Now we'll never be ninjas." Naruto shouted, "Think fast," and hurled the 2 bells at Sakura and Sasuke, who awkwardly caught them. "What are you?" "The point of this test is to test our teamwork. So, I got the bells, and gave them to you. I didn't work to become a ninja, and you 2 did, so it's only fair that you 2 took the bells. What would teams be worth, if they didn't work together?" replied Naruto. "Nothing," asked Sakura. "Exactly. Teams would be the exact same as a group of solo assassin forced to work together. They would just destroy each other. That's why teamwork is important," replied Naruto. You, screamed Kakashi, visibly irate. He concluded with a smile, saying, "You all pass." While everyone else, with the exception of Kakashi, fell flat on their faces, Naruto smiled. "Now what?" Naruto yelled angrily, all day long, we've had nothing but D-rank missions. It's all Team 7's had since we became genin. It's all the Rookie 9 have had, because all the higher rank missions are taken, and there really aren't any higher than D. The feud between the countries have been surprisingly calm." Sakura didn't glance up from her job. She felt like getting up and leaving as she wiped the perspiration from her brow. In any case, who wanted missions like this? Naruto asked bitterly, "Then why doesn't the old man just give us one of the few higher rank missions?" To which Sakura replied, "I don't know." After breaking his back, Naruto resumed walking in circles while using his newly developed tail to pull a bag through the water for this mission. I might add that it was a mission he did not enjoy. Clean up one of Konoha's lakes. Cheers, a terrible mission. My ass is on mission. Inside his head, Naruto snarled. Why don't they assign this task to the academy students? In any case, what are those tiny humans useful for? For no other reason than that they despise you all, Kyuubi answered. I agree with him. I bet they just hate all the new ninjas, especially when they're from the crossbreed side of life. Rakshaya concurred. You were asked? Naruto yelled. Said Blonde turned to face his two friends, who were using mesh nets to remove trash from the murky, dark water while hanging upside down from trees by the backs of their knees. Like Naruto's own Shuhakusho, the two had transformed into Shuhakusho in order to lessen their perceived normalcy. Naturally, Normalians were viewed as trash due to their lack of chakra. Ichigo wore a white kimono top and an orange hakama that matched the color of his hair. Rukia wore a white kimono top and a black hakama that matched her hair color. Given that Rukia, Ichigo, and Naruto were all wearing nearly identical outfits, someone might think it was absurd if they stood side by side. All three, however, were accustomed to donning the Shinigami garb, which naturally had to include the simple Shuhakusho. Naturally, no one was aware that the trio were Shinigami, so who cared? Naruto called with a cheeky smirk. You guys okay? Or are your heads going to explode from all the blood rushing into your brains from gravity? When Rukia called, we're fine. The young Shinigami was obviously not paying attention to Naruto's lighthearted remark as he scowled at Rukia. Ichigo asked, why won't you let us go in the water? After Naruto had returned to dragging his tail idly through the water and had stopped glaring at the girl. Ichigo's eyes widened as Naruto calmly reached beneath the water, pulled a 3-foot leech from his shin, and waved the black creature in the air. As he smiled and his fox ears perked up at Ichigo's bewildered expression, Naruto questioned, do you really want these on your legs? Ichigo answered slowly, no, not really, exactly. Don't fall in, Ichigo. I trust Rukia not to fall in, because she's trained with this crap. Rukia screamed, how the hell did I train not to fall in water? But Naruto's voice drowned her out. Totally unaware of Rukia's remark, Naruto concluded, but you might still fall in. Hey, Ichigo exclaimed, seeming insulted, despite Naruto's scent indicating that he was far away. After laughing uncontrollably, Naruto resumed his circular gait, pulling the bag and tail behind him. He drained the water from the bag by pulling it out of the water and using his claws to poke holes at the bottom. With a casual flick of his wrist, he tossed the plastic bag to the shore after tying it closed at the top. After taking another plastic bag out of his pocket, he submerged it in the water, tangled his tail through the flimsy handles, and proceeded to walk through the water while the bag collected the trash. Sakura scowled at the fox Hanyu and said, you're a jerk, you know that? With a small smile, Naruto asked aloud, how am I a jerk? Sakura threw her leech covered arms in the air as proof, saying, you have a tail. You don't have to get these stupid suckers on your arms. In response, a bewildered Naruto said, why don't you just learn to walk on water? Her eyes popped out of her head as she exclaimed, you know how to do that? Naruto's eyes narrowed, but they were bright with laughter. He answered slowly, then smiled a little. Maybe. Naruto roared. What kind of freaking mission is this? His venom was enough to melt steel. Naruto yelled, first babysitting, then cleaning up lakes, then walking dogs, now pulling weeds? As he viciously tore another weed from the world. Rukia and Ichigo had been busy hauling the bulky, heavy weed bags to the expanding stack of black trash bags. Angrily, Naruto tossed down another filled bag and went on to the next. He was radiating a heat of rage that was making the air around him turn red. I swear, once this is over, I'm going to get a fucking better mission. Naruto yelled. Or just kill Kakashi. Yeah, that might work. Rukia looked unimpressed by what the ninjas she knew were doing and said, I thought ninjas would be cooler than this. If you know all those techniques, what do you use them for? Entertaining yourselves on your missions? This is only a D rank mission. There are still C rank, B rank, A rank, and S rank missions, which are probably a lot better than these crap missions we get, replied Sakura. Naruto rambled, yeah, dull, cooler, bodacious, awesome, and out. Ichigo glanced at the blonde from where he was attempting to stuff more bags and said, and what? In 1 yard, how many weeds could this woman have? Without glancing up from the obstinate weed he was attempting to pull, Naruto answered, suicidal. Wow, Rukia and Ichigo came to a halt. It seems more likely that someone or something forcibly cut them off. With stars in his eyes, Naruto muttered, I want one of the S-rank missions. He had a vision of Naruto standing over a group of enemy ninja, his arms in the victory position, and the people of Konoha bowing down to him while yelling, We are not worthy. And you are too good for us to be here. Naturally, the daydreams were rendered absurd by their adorable chibi forms. With a joyful sigh, Naruto gazed up at the sky. Dreamily, he said, "Oh, that would be awesome." As Rukia freed her mouth from whatever was controlling her, she screamed, "Naruto! Would you stop day? Dreaming about the villagers bowing to you and freaking help us?" After turning around, Naruto paused and gazed at the scene in a blank manner. The weeds apparently objected to being pulled out. As it roared with its beak, like mouth, threatening to devour Naruto's teammates and comrades, they made the decision to come to life as enormous man. Eating vines that had wrapped around Ichigo, Rukia, Sasuke, and Sakura, suspending them in midair. With his claws and teeth bared, Naruto sprang into action and uttered, "Then again, D ranks can be interesting." Naruto looked up from the vines he was weaving together to create a huge sword that resembled Rakshaya and asked, "So, what are we waiting for exactly? He got the vines from where? Let's just say that there is a depressed vine monster that has no arms." Kakashi. Sensei. Sasuke muttered as he picked the green guts of the vine monster from beneath his fingernails with a kunai. Ichigo complained, "He's always late," as he looked up from the bow he was trying out. Ichigo apparently rushed out and purchased a bow dot and arrow as soon as he learned that Naruto's villages had them. With an expression of extreme boredom, Sakura sighed, "Never early, never on time. Always late." Abruptly, the scarecrow himself emerged in a puff of smoke. In greeting, he held up a hand. "Yo. Sorry I'm late, I was lost on the road of Lee." Sakura looked up from the floor and said, "Used that one." "Oh, well, I was going to say that I was getting lost on the road of life, but then I saw two little brown blocks with arms, legs, eyes, and mouths, domos, chasing a little kitten. I remembered that phrase, every time you masturbate, God kills a kitten. Please, think of the kittens. So I thought of the kitten, kicked the little brown blocks' asses, and rescued the kitten." Kakashi continued. All five of them gazed at the man. Rukia, Ichigo, and Naruto all pointed with white, circled eyes. "Liar!" exclaimed everyone. Kakashi began to perspire. The man with the hair that defied gravity took out a picture of a brown-haired cat and said, "Well then, we have a mission to capture a cat." Rukia, Ichigo, and Naruto all gazed at the image, their eyes wide. Rukia said, "Naruto, first." Ichigo concluded for her, "Isn't that the cat that attacked you this morning?" Slowly, Naruto nodded. Naruto replied, "Yup. That's the stupid cat." Naruto turned to Ichigo and Rukia and remarked, "If that was Yoruichi, I would have eaten her by now. She knows not to attack me." Ichigo replied, "Yeah, now she does." With a sigh, Naruto appeared to draw a sword as he reached up over his right shoulder. Suddenly, he drew a cat out from behind him, its mouth taped shut and its front and back legs bound together. Kakashi was taken aback by the scene and failed to catch the cat when he threw it to him. With a loud "REOW," the cat smashed into the ground after flying straight past him. Calmly, Naruto said, "Here's your stupid cat Kakashi." As the cat attempted to crawl away, Kakashi lifted it off the ground by the scruff of its neck and asked, "How did you get this cat? He's nearly impossible to catch." Naruto scratched the back of his neck and said, "He attacked me this morning when I was leaving my apartment with Ichigo and Rukia. He latched onto my leg and wouldn't let go until I taped his legs together." Sasuke, who hated the cat that had somehow shaved him completely bald in 5 seconds flat during his first mission 3 years prior, asked from the far side of the bridge, "Well, why did he attack you?" Naruto gave the Uchiha a blank stare. Naruto made the deadpan statement, "Cats don't like foxes." Naruto bared his teeth and growled in response to the cat's hissing toward him. Naruto collapsed with swirls for eyes after Ichigo struck him on the top of the head. In response to the blonde, he added, "And foxes don't like cats." With no movement, Kakashi deadpanned, "They want better missions." The Hokage remarked, "But genin are only supposed to be on D ranks." Not wanting Naruto and the others to keep screaming at him for not allowing them to grow stronger on a mission that truly matched their capabilities, Kakashi winced. The Hokage started, which caused Kakashi to tense up. "Maybe I can make an exception. Your team has completed over 200 D-rank missions since Naruto arrived 1 week ago, which is a world record in all the lands, in Fire Country and outside Fire Country. Maybe I can get you a better mission, a longer term C rank?" The third said, after Naruto and his friends verbally tortured him, were nearly torn apart by a mob of women for reading his perverted books, were struck by a drunken carriage, and had been attacked by that rabid cat. Expecting Naruto, Ichigo, Rukia, Sasuke, and Sakura to be bouncing with excitement and shooting party streamers, he turned to face them. However, he discovered that they had not been paying any attention to anything that had been going on since they had entered the room. They were discussing how to prepare ramen. Naruto pounded his fist into his open palm in the eureka, and exclaimed, "So then, you put in the frosted deer or squirrel meat, and then bam! You've got a delicious bowl of ramen." Position. Taking notes with a notebook and brush in his hands, Sasuke questioned, "Why not just frost the meat? Why keep it as hard as ice?" "Because the boiling hot water would melt the frost and heat the meat, making it chewable, while the frost cools down the broth so it won't burn off your tongue," Naruto responded with a huge grin. Sakura looked interested as she jotted down the recipe in her mind. "But if it cools down the broth, then how does the broth stay hot enough to melt the ice and frost on the meat?" she asked. Naruto looked at the girl with the pink hair and said, "Because the water is supposed to be so hot that it melts the ice before all the cold water from the ice and frost can make the originally boiling water cold." Ichigo questioned Rukia, "Are we the only ones that think eating squirrel is weird?" There was silence for a few seconds. Sakura turned to Naruto and said, "You said squirrel?" The blonde gave a nod. "Yes. It's good," was Naruto's blank response. "Hey!" exclaimed the third. The whole group was a huge ball of tangled limbs and clothes as Naruto fell backwards from his sitting position. Sasuke's brush and notebook flew out of his hands. Ichigo and Rukia collided sideways, and Sakura screamed and fell into Sasuke. They had a hard time organizing themselves. "Is that your foot or my foot? I don't know, Dobi. Does this hurt?" "Ouch. Don't bite my foot, ass, or I'll use Zanjetsu and cut your freaking head open." Ichigo. "Get your hand out of my mouth." "Sorry, Naruto." Rukia, "Get your foot off my neck." "That's not my foot." "Then whose is it? What the hell am I holding?" "Let go of my freaking ear. It's sensitive." "Get your fucking toe out of my eye." "Shut up, Avenger. I can't move that foot." "Ouch, stop pulling my ear. I just said it's sensitive." Rukia. "Get off me. I can't. That pink-haired girl is on top of me. My head is stuck under Sasuke's ass. Holy shit. My nose, it burns. I think I cracked my nose. Oh my god, sexual harassment. Sexual harassment. Sasuke is gay, holy shit. Aw, that's gross. Rukia, hurry and move. Naruto and that duck-haired kid are having sex on your back." "What? Oh my fucking god. My virgin mind is scared for life." Seedzual HAAARASSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssssss gay man who's raping me." The massive throng of yelling teenagers was finally untangled and standing once more. Neither Ichigo nor Naruto were bothered by their messy hair. Those who wore headbands had their bands crooked on their bodies, and some of their garments were twisted at strange angles. Now that the world can see it, Naruto's fox ears were partially torn off, leaving a bloody stump that was 2 inches tall and gushing blood down his forehead. His right foot was twisted all the way back, with the heel where the toes should have been, and his nose was red, as if it had been burned. Ichigo's left arm was stuck behind his head, twisted at a strange and uncomfortable angle. On the inside of her face, one of Rukia's eyes was crooked and 1.5 inches lower than it should have been. The mental image is hilarious. Sakura had a large black eye and a nose that was bent at an unrecognizable angle. She also had a huge bruise on her forehead that was already purple. Sasuke came last. He had lost most of his teeth and half of his hair, which was scattered across the floor. 5 were lodged in Naruto's forehead, 2 in his left arm, and 3 in his right foot. Now the blonde was huddled in a corner in the fetal position, rocking back and forth on his heels while muttering about sexual harassment, virgin minds, and a gay Sasuke. The Hokage began to perspire. "Anyway, I'm giving you a C-rank mission to escort a bridge builder to Wave." Abruptly, Naruto got up and joined his friends. His fox ear had somehow healed completely, but aside from that, he and the others, who were still hurt from their fall, looked the same. Then Naruto jumped up and down with excitement and exclaimed, "Who is it, old man? Who?" The bones creaked and moaned under the unusual pressure, and his twisted foot made strange noises. To be honest, the man who entered the room with his head down appeared inebriated. He held a half-empty bottle of beer in his hand. He stumbled into the room, paused, and hiccuped. He raised his head and gestured to Naruto and the others while stumbling over his words due to intoxication. Not having the strength to keep his mouth open, the bridge builder slurred through clacking teeth, "RRRT's dog eyes, escorting me? the beer swiftly filled the room, and Naruto could only smell it in his breath. Soon after, Rukia and Ichigo noticed a faint smell and appeared repulsed. Sake had a pleasant scent, but beer? It was disgusting. With a somewhat pirate-like slur of his own words, Naruto answered, "Yes, de rrrrrrr." Without letting the beer smell escape his lips. With a scowl, the man approached Naruto, lifted his half-empty beer, and poured its contents onto his blonde hair, combining them with the blood, grime, and spit from Sasuke that were already present. He lifted the bottle and smashed it against his head, sending glass fragments flying everywhere. In Naruto's hair, more blood mingled with the other items. His teeth and glass were now stuck in his forehead. Naruto's face transformed into a happy grin that portended impending disaster. He made Ichigo and Rukia retreat swiftly but stealthily, thrust his hand forward, and cheerfully attempted to break his neck. Kakashi, meanwhile, sighed from his room's corner. Never mind. My day isn't looking good, I suppose. He pondered. Living with a Hanyu, huh? So much fun. Gates of Konoha. Naruto kept complaining to himself. It seems that Tazuna was an obstinate jerk. The fact that Naruto was a half-demon was not something he accepted. He would say, he couldn't hurt a fly. Then, fortunately, Ichigo and Rukia were quick enough to stop Naruto before he could rip his head off. Ichigo gave Naruto a tap on the right arm. He warned, "You forgot one." After examining his arm from below and muttering a silent "Thank you," Naruto extracted another tooth from his forearm. He successfully struck Sasuke in the left temple with it. Naruto called out, "You damn bastard, you can have your tooth back." Despite his scowl, Sasuke leaned over and inserted the tooth back into his mouth, silently appreciating the return of one of his molars. Naruto's eyes widened as he turned to face Rukia. He gestured to his own cheek, and Rukia rubbed hers, her eyes still too low and crooked. Rukia, he said. However, this movement only made it more perverse. Ichigo and Naruto suppressed a chuckle, and Naruto praised her. He covered his mouth with his hand and turned back to the front after saying, "You got it." Rukia simply shrugged and carried on with her stroll. Naruto noticed Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi looking at the three of them all the time. They would flinch as Naruto simply stared back and then grinned evilly. Naruto looked at a single puddle on the street. The sun is blazing, it's midsummer, it hasn't rained in weeks, and there aren't any more puddles. There's a problem. Naruto pondered. With the help of the Soul Reapers, he communicated his thoughts to Ichigo and Rukia by reaching out with his Ritsu. They were observing the puddle and responded via Ritsu that they were aware. When it twitched, all three smiled. When the others realized the three Soul Reapers weren't following, they stopped as well, but the trio stopped in front of the puddle. Naruto questioned, "So, you guys want to do it, or will I?" Ichigo said, "I dunno. Do you want to do it?" Rukia shrugged and said, "I don't see the difference. It's going to have the same outcome no matter what." With a smile, Naruto and Ichigo lifted Rukia together. Together, the two shouted, "Run to your lover, Rukia," and tossed their friend into the puddle. When she struck rock, hard metal, she screamed. Rukia jumped up, shouting, "What the hell?" and completely forgot about the two demon brothers she had just landed on and knocked out. Ichigo noted, "Well, we did need something to throw." With a gasp, Naruto gestured. "Br." He cried, lifted Rukia by himself with incredible strength, and threw her at a huge grizzly bear. She screamed as the enormous animal went crazy on her after colliding with her. Ichigo and Naruto simply chuckled. Later that day, Naruto paused and sniffed the air as the seven of them were strolling peacefully down the street. Rukia and Ichigo halted. Ichigo said, "What is it, Fox.Boy?" Naruto's gaze expanded. "Two things, actually. One, Sasuke's hair looks like duck's ass that is about to give birth. Hey, and there's a huge sword coming at us." Ichigo, Rukia, and Naruto immediately hit the ground, throwing their arms over their heads. Following, the other ninjas dragged Tazuna down with them. A sword of gigantic proportions swung through the area where their heads had been as soon as they had fallen. Naruto's expression was deadpan as he looked up. Calmly, he said, "You know that just figures." Together with Tazuna and the Soul Reapers, the ninjas leapt from the ground and gave the person in opposition a fierce look. Kakashi opened his mouth to say something, but Naruto spoke first. Naruto said, "Momochi Zabuza. Dangerous nuke nin. Am I right?" The man's gaze expanded. He questioned, "How does a kid your age know that?" The bandana covering his fox ears was torn off by Naruto. Naruto screamed, "Because you used to kill my kind for fun, you jackass." Zabuza's eyes grew wider still. F.Fox.Boy. He stammered instead. W. What are you doing with humans? Apparently getting ready to kick your sorry ass all the way to Karakura. Where? Naruto roared, oh forget it, and rushed forward, zigzagging his way forward to avoid Zabuza's pinpointing. Then, when he got close enough, Naruto struck out with his food, causing Zabuza to fall into the lake behind him after he connected the toe of his shoes to his jaw. To shake off the dust that had somehow gotten on his skin, Naruto turned and clapped his hands together. Naruto remarked, well then, I think that covers that. Kakashi remarked, he's still alive kid. Naruto gave him a look. The rest is your problem. Naruto answered, I took out my revenge. His eyes were wide as the three ninja gazed at him. Hey, don't give me that look. Do you already forget that you wanted me to come back to the village to live in a cage, that you were trying to force me to come back to land I don't like as much as my new home? That you forced me silently to become a ninja, whereas I would have liked to stay living in the forest? Do you forget that my name was changed to Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze Kurosaki? Or did all that just fly through the holes you call ears, and out the other side without wrapping around your war? Craving minds? Answer me those questions, and then I'll help. Maybe. Said, and then leaned against Ichigo followed by Rukia. Damn, Naruto sounds angry. As Kakashi and the other fought for their lives, the three of them cheerfully discussed what made soup better. Literally. They were also losing. Ichigo said, don't you think you should help? Naruto shrugged. No, they can manage themselves. They're ninja, he sneered. Rukia said, you're a ninja too. Yes, but I've always managed to get by on my own. They only recently learned, Naruto said. Ichigo and Rukia sighed and leaned back again before he swore and leapt to the side. Knowing better than to remain in one spot after Naruto leapt away like a crazy person, Ichigo and Rukia flew in opposite directions. Naruto transformed into his smaller one-tailed fox form, lowered his head, and growled. A second Zabuza was standing in the trees, and Naruto sniffed his scent. I was just sitting there, so why would a water clone attack me? But then again, why does he attack me every time he sees me? Naruto asked himself. Now that Konoha has gone out and killed almost all of the foxes, they are extremely valuable. Zabuza snarled from his treetop perch, but a kitsune could get me even more. Go ahead and try, bastard. Naruto snarled, and Zabuza swung his sword. Thinking the big meat cleaver was too big to hit him quickly enough, Naruto leapt above it, but the water clone connected the blades flat with his furry stomach, sending him flying into a tree where he lay, trying to shake off the stars that danced in his vision. The white fox shook his head and leapt up on the branch, and the kitsune, weighing too much, launched himself into the air. Naruto dove at Zabuza, glaring with his piercing blue eyes, drew his right paw back, and slashed through Zabuza's chest, but this man simply burst into water that melted into the ground. God damn it. Ichigo and Rukia were frantically trying to come up with something to do from the sidelines. Naruto was obstinate and would never accept assistance from any Konoha ninjas, so helping themselves without revealing that they were Shinigami was out of the question. It was not normal to have two of the same people, two of them dead. Ichigo snapped his fingers, dug into his pocket, turning in circles as he tried to reach the object inside, pulled his hand out, and threw an object to Naruto. Naruto. Capture. Ichigo called out, and Naruto grabbed the thing he had sent with his tail. After examining it, he concluded that it was a firebomb. Where on earth did you obtain this? Naruto yelled. I know a man. Assault the water clones with them. Ichigo shouted, and Naruto shrugged before hurling the firebomb pellets at random with his tail. Acquire. Naruto yelled, I'm going to have to scold you for buying bombs, but nice thinking. Zabuza's clones obeyed because they were total fools, and they exploded after burning for a while before vanishing into the ground and turning back to water. Naruto smiled. Ichigo remarked, you're the one who said I should carry bombs just in case. Naruto froze. Really? He said, I'm at number 126 now, Ichigo. Ichigo nodded, and Naruto said, well then, I was smart. Ichigo palmed his forehead. Naruto laughed, and started dancing. The competition is on, and has been going on behind our backs. Gah! Naruto screamed as he collided with a tree after being struck by Zabuza's sword flat. What are you doing in hell? Naruto got back up and shook his body, sending pieces of bark flying from his fur as he asked. We're having a competition. He must dye his hair neon pink and leave it that way for 2 years if I can make him palm his face 500 times before we both pass away. Naruto responded, and I'm winning. He abruptly assumed a contemplative stance, but then again, there's a flaw in that plan. If we both die before the count reaches 500, Then I need to dye my fur neon orange and walk around the human world in my giant form, talking non-stop. Just a recap on the competition. How will I go about the human world with orange fur and talk if we both pass away before the wager is finished? Ichigo scowled as Naruto said, so, in other words, no matter what, I win. I hatred. He snarled, you. Naruto simply smiled further. Naruto reprimanded, no you don't, Ichi.ni. Ichigo complained, Fox. Baka. Are you not referring to Fox.ni? Naruto inquired. Ichigo pointed out, you're not my blood brother. Naruto grinned and feigned pain. Ichi.ni, I'm hurt. I truly am, he said, turning back to face Zabuza with a menacing smile. Now, let's get down to business. After 20 minutes. So wanted to end it up there, but that would be too short. Naruto was currently complaining to himself once more. Just before he killed Zabuza, a ninja had shown up, killed him, and carried him away. This had enraged Naruto so much that he had remained silent, even declining the offer of ramen. Ichigo and Rukia had assumed that he was developing a fever, but when Ichigo palmed his forehead, Naruto cheerfully replied, 127. Thus, he was still himself. At the moment, Naruto and the others were escorting Tazuna back to his house. The group had made Naruto wear the bandana once more after a farmer with a pitchfork started a mob with other pitchforks and torches to slay the demon, and had pursued him all the way to the ocean. Now, he was just fine. Why they had to attempt to burn my ears off is still beyond me. They'll simply regrow, Naruto whispered. Really? Ichigo inquired, and Naruto shrugged. I'm not sure, perhaps. But what I still don't understand is why we're still on this mission if it's no longer qualified as a C rank. Naruto responded, I don't want to try it. Because you chained yourself to a tree and wouldn't come off until we promised to carry it all the way through, replied Ichigo. Naruto complained, oh yeah, man, and that was my best chain. After just one use, you didn't have to discard it into the sea. After a few moments of staring at Rukia, Naruto said, you could have used it more than once. A girl who is old enough to be my great godmother. Why should I listen to her? Hey, it's crazy, old hag. Rukia's eye twitched just before she punched Naruto in the face, causing a lovely nosebleed. Naruto laughed uneasily, and Ichigo looked away as he yelled, pointing an accusing finger at the girl. In an attempt to hide what he was saying, he said, old hag, in between coughs, but Rukia understood. Ichigo, fuck off. Rukia, who was wearing clothes with long claws hanging off her fingers, yelled and leapt at him, tearing into Ichigo's face as Naruto pointed and laughed uncontrollably. Hey, a sucker. Rukia turned against Naruto as he laughed. Phew. Boy, you're next. A bloodied and battered Ichigo was left on the trail after she yelled and jumped at him. Naruto screamed and ran down the trail, screaming bloody murder while a Freddy Krueger impersonator chased him and yelled threats behind him. There are 39 bottles of sake situated on the wall. As it turned out, the journey to Tazuna's house was far longer and more dull than they had anticipated, so Naruto began at 30,000 and ended up at 38 bottles of sake on the wall. Take one down, pass it around, Naruto sang, mostly to himself. Ichigo sighed, Naruto, shut up. Naruto gestured accusingly. You're just a non-believer in the might power of sake on a wall, replied Naruto. Ichigo snarled, I'm going to kill Yuzu for teaching you that song. And I'll risk my life to keep my adopted sister safe. With his fist hammering his chest, Naruto uttered those words. Ichigo said, good luck with that. Rukia sighed and started to perspire, while Naruto started to cry anime tears. I choose to make friends with some strange people, she complained, it's my curse. Naruto gave her a thumbs up. You're right, my love, Rukia rolled her eyes, while Naruto cackled. She complained, crazy. Ichigo looked up from the map he was reading, and Naruto simply gave another thumbs up. How much farther? Did he ask? Why? Is the average person growing weary? Ichigo disregarded Sasuke's tone as he sneered. No, Ichigo answered without raising his gaze from the map, I just don't want you guys fainting from being too tired. Ichigo, don't worry. These guys are free to pass out. Ichigo shrugged and Naruto said, we can just drag them the rest of the way. He said, okay. Naruto smiled and gave another thumbs up, just for fun, and then abruptly took the map from his adoptive brother. Hey! Ichigo shouted. Ichigo gazed at the map as Naruto reprimanded him, you were holding the map upside down, idiot. Damn it, the house of Tazuna. Naruto surveyed the spacious front room. Well, homie, Naruto uttered without emotion. Ichigo remarked, you think everything is homie. No. Ichigo refrained from palming his own forehead and instead sighed as Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, entered the doorway and grinned. I think everything with 4 straight walls that doesn't have slime all over said walls is homie, Naruto said. Why, hi. Would you all mind sitting down? Tsunami said, and the 3 Shinigami and 3 ninjas sat down with a sigh of relief. What? Are the regular people growing weary? Sasuke scoffed once more. Handing the bandana over his fox ears, Naruto calmly replied, unless I'm mistaken, Uchiha, you just sighed in relief too. Damn it, I can defend myself. Ichigo added, I know Rukia can. With an odd expression on his face, Naruto said, and that explains why we had to go on an insane mission to make sure her own brother didn't kill her. Ichigo shot back, you weren't complaining when you were tagging along. Yes, I was. I was griping about everyone who was attacking us. What happens in the everyday world? The 3 Shinigami gazed at the ninjas as Kakashi posed the question. Together, they said, a lot. But the better question is what goes on in your head, Ichigo responded. I listened to Rakshaya complain about his damn flute rusting up when it rains, replied Naruto. Flute? No. Shiraki is not a flute player. However, she gripes about me unintentionally freezing over her harp. Hey. The little friends of your guy are awful, Ichigo chuckled. Zangetsu plays the electric guitar. Yes, because he learned from Rakshaya. The only instrument that doesn't rust, aside from a leaf whistle, is his electric guitar. Damn you, flute. Ichigo laughed as Naruto screamed and then abruptly fell backwards, clutching his head. What's so amusing? Rukia inquired naively, feeling as though she already knew the answer. Rukia sighed, and Ichigo answered, Zangetsu, and through him, me, can hear Rakshaya yelling at Naruto about how his flute isn't stupid. Rukia laughed, I'm glad Soda no Shirayuki isn't as crazy as your guys. Ichigo and Naruto scowled at the Shinigami with the black hair. What? She inquired. Together, Ichigo and Naruto uttered the words, you will oddly find your head covered in peanut butter tonight. How on earth would you obtain so much peanut butter? With a smug smile, believing she had won, Rukia asked as Naruto produced a sealing scroll. Naruto smiled and said, sealing scrolls still work in the normal world, Rukia. Later that evening, with a can of soda in his hand, Naruto entered the room that he, Ichigo, and Rukia would be sharing during their stay in Wave. Ichigo looked up from the pile of papers he and Rukia were reading and said, where the hell do you get that? Ichigo inquired. Clock ceiling. After throwing a can of Pepsi to his 2 friends, who caught it with ease, Naruto retorted, what are the papers for? Next to the peanut butter. Rukia jolted to attention and held up the papers as Naruto, leaning against a wall close to them, asked. This is a Karakura report. Actually, from Renji. While I'm here, he's stationed in Karakura, Rukia said. Calm down. Why, then, are the expressions so solemn? While drinking his own can of Pepsi, Naruto posed the question. Rukia handed Naruto the thin stack of papers and said, well, take a look for yourself. Naruto accepted the papers and read the first paragraph that caught his attention. In Karakura, the number of hollows has been oddly rising and falling according to the week. There are so many hollows every few weeks that it is impossible to break them. It's odd that there aren't enough hollows to go around during the other weeks. The hollows are typically Gillen level, but these are far above the typical lumbering Manos Grande, and the ones that do show up are stronger than any that have ever been seen. All right? As he returned the papers to Rukia, Naruto inquired. All right. So much. Even when discussing Karakura, Manos Grande is typically uncommon. However, something significant must be happening if they are becoming more powerful and continue to appear in Karakura. It's almost if. Rukia's eyes widened abruptly, and she quickly pulled out her phone and started typing words. What? Naruto asked, bending over her shoulder slightly, trying to read the small words on the small screen. What's wrong? When Rukia failed to respond to Naruto's question, he repeated it. I know insider information even though I'm just a regular squad member because I'm still a member of the Kuchiki clan. This hollow, who had a shard of a mask on the side of his face, used to resemble a human. He identified as an Arankar. Rukia answered, if I'm correct, then there might be more Arankars out there. Ichigo and Naruto remained silent. So, they all asked at once. So, that means we might have to deal with hollows that are more powerful than any we've ever seen, replied Rukia. Naruto and Ichigo responded, ooh. Rukia closed her phone and exhaled a sigh of relief. It was successful. All I can hope is that they heed my caution and send someone to look into it. If they don't, we could be in serious trouble. This Renji report sounds a lot like what happened a few hundred years ago, but I could be wrong, Rukia remarked. What precisely happened? Naruto nodded in agreement as Ichigo posed the question. A few hundred years ago, there was an Arankar who desired an artifact from Seirei. He was so strong that even Yamamoto Sotecho couldn't defeat him by himself. It was really crazy. I only saw him once because I was still in the academy, and that was by chance. Rukia answered, but I can tell you now that I never want to see one again. The blonde Hanyu sighed, and the three of them fell silent as they considered their options. All right. Here's our plan of action. After completing this mission, we will return to Karakura. We'll visit Soul Society when we return to see how things are going. With his arms folded across his chest, Naruto said, then, we'll just go back to living normally, and hope that Konoha doesn't need me for a while. The other two nodded, and silence returned, but then the blonde smiled, turning the other two pale. What? Ichigo inquired. Naruto answered, well, you guys are going to be my guinea pigs. How? Ichigo inquired. I'll see if we can turn some of your Ritsu into chakra, Naruto cheerfully answered. Rukia remarked, I'm not sure if I want to do that. However, Rukia, would you not like to return from the elemental islands with a memento that will last a lifetime? And Ichigo, don't you want to be able to kick ass even more? Naruto reprimanded, striking the girl straight in her weak spot. Well, you guys sleep on it, because I'm going to take a pretty little nap. Naruto responded, laying down on a mat and dozing off before the others could object. The two looked down thoughtfully. The following day, Rukia and Ichigo followed Naruto as he made his way through the dining room. Yo! I'm going out with Ichigo and Rukia to train, Naruto called blankly, ignoring the silver-haired man seated at the table. Where and for what duration? What else could the Normalians train in besides being, well, normal? Kakashi inquired. After leaving the others inside, Naruto said, wherever I want, and for however long I want. Ichigo and Rukia ran to catch up with the blonde, who, after he had moved far enough away from the house, pulled the bandana off his head, his fox ears twitching. Naruto looked at Rukia, who was staring at him, and exclaimed, what? With his arms raised in the air, Naruto screamed. Your ears. Rukia gave a blank response. How about them? Naruto answered. She said, they're fox ears. Have you noticed? Ichigo inquired. No, I simply haven't gotten used to it yet. A human with fox ears, that is. Rukia said, it's kind of weird. Naruto gazed at her. Rukia was staring at Naruto when he said, I'm not sure whether I want to punch you, ignore that last comment, or throw you off a bridge. What? Rukia said, I was just expressing my opinion. Naruto turned away and continued into the forest. The two rushed to catch up with the swiftly vanishing blonde, but Naruto complained, never mind. Just come on. You want us to learn how to use our Ritsu to perform those chakra-related tasks? Rukia inquired. Shut up, Rukia. Only shinobi and their jutsu can use chakra, whereas Shinigami and their powers can use Ritsu, Naruto retorted. Therefore, how will this work? Ichigo inquired. All right, I have a hypothesis. Chakra is similar to Ritsu. Why can't you guys have both like I do? Yes, I have chakra from birth, but I might be able to transfer some of my human chakra to you all. In order to support enough chakra to perform actual jutsu, this chakra will help your chakra coils that are unquestionably present in your guy's body enlarge. Ichigo gazed thoughtfully at the canopy above as Naruto answered, after that, you just need to push some of your Ritsu into your chakra coils, and allow my chakra to morph that Shinigami power into shinobi power. Why don't you just use your demon chakra for a moment? Wouldn't that be more effective? Ichigo inquired, and Naruto gave a small laugh. The blonde Hanyu sighed as the two stared at him in disbelief, and Naruto responded, not unless you guys want to die. You guys are not exactly human, but you still have a little bit of human in you because of your Shinigami powers, he said. In particular, Ichigo, thank you for continuing to live. However, if I insert some of my demon chakra into your bodies, it will cause your chakra coils to enlarge excessively, corrupt your Ritsu, and essentially turn you into a malevolent entity, just as I would be if I allowed my demon chakra to rule. Basically, if I give you some of my demon chakra, one of three things will occur. 1. You'll simply explode because the evil power strain was too great for your bodies to withstand. Secondly, you might be poisoned and suffer a slow, agonizing death. Alternatively, you might become a demon yourself, or if you're lucky, you might simply become a bloodthirsty Hanyu. However, the blow-up option is the one you should choose if you had to choose between the three. Trust me, the agonizing death is terrible, and that's why you would want my human chakra, and not my demon chakra. Naruto said, and the two looked shocked. But by getting rid of that much human chakra, there will be consequences for me and my health, mental and physical. Naruto thought, worry beginning to creep into his mind, but he pushed the emotion away and smiled slightly. Well, what will we do? Or will we do this? The two nodded when Naruto asked, and he immediately sat down, his face once again bewildered. What are you doing? Rukia inquired. They followed Naruto's instructions to just sit down. Naruto shifted to his knees, placed one hand on each of their foreheads, and they closed their eyes. Oh, and a little warning, this is going to hurt. Before they could object, Naruto's hands glowed blue, and they shuddered as they felt his strange feeling power seep into their bodies, and they felt as if a third of their Ritsu had been sapped, and it had grown larger. They wanted to gasp at the new sensation. Slowly, Naruto cut the connection with his own chakra, leaving his chakra in their bodies, and he quickly pulled his hands away before collapsing. Ichigo and Rukia leapt forward to assist the blonde, but were taken aback when their bodies left the ground more easily than they had anticipated, and flew straight over Naruto and into the low hanging branches over the fallen blonde. Ichigo spit out a mouthful of leaves, and Rukia picked twigs from her hair. What was that? Rukia inquired. Your bodies were adjusting to your new chakra at that point. Chakra lessens the effects of gravity. Ichigo and Rukia leapt to the ground as Naruto responded, that's why I have to teach you to control it, while pulling himself up into a sitting position. Are you alright? You just suddenly collapsed, Ichigo inquired. With his eyes closed and breathing heavily, Naruto said, I'm fine. Ichigo and Rukia gasped as his eyes opened a little. Naruto. Examine your eye. Rukia fumbled in her pocket and took out a small mirror, which she offered to the blonde as Ichigo yelled. You're a female. Accepting the round mirror, Naruto said, I won't comment on you carrying a mirror in your pocket. He opened his eyes fully and looked at his left eye, which had a very slit pupil and was dark amethyst in color, similar to the tips of his tails when he was a fox. Shit. Naruto hissed to himself, then returned the mirror to Rukia. Don't worry, it isn't anything. My human chakra has just been heavily depleted. Just a little tired, Naruto retorted. Part of that was true. He did use a little of his human chakra, but he wasn't exhausted. As a Hanyu, he had used up roughly 32% of his human chakra to transform some of Ichigo and Rukia's Ritsu into actual chakra. His demon chakra was now his most dominant chakra. His purple eye was actually the color of his full demon's eyes. If he didn't take it easy and use a combination of his human and demon chakra, his demon half might take control, perhaps permanently. Are you certain? Ichigo remarked. You don't look so good. Naruto nodded, got to his feet, and shook his eyes. Yes, I'm sure I'm all right. We must now begin your training. Why? Naruto responded. I just want to run around and test out my new weightlessness in my real body. He leapt around lightly, which would normally raise someone 2 inches off the ground but instead sent him 3 feet into the air. Yes. Do you want your body to be gradually torn apart by your chakra? Rukia froze and Ichigo stopped bouncing around when Naruto asked. What? The blonde Hanyu sighed as Rukia asked. Children who exhibit the potential to have a lot of chakra here on the elemental islands begin training to control their chakra output early on, typically beginning around age 5, to prevent them from killing themselves. They nodded slowly in understanding, and Ichigo swallowed uneasily. For you guys, since you are already so old, no offense Rukia, you need to start right away, or risk dying, Naruto said. How long until we are torn apart by our chakra? Ichigo inquired. You're asking how long we have in case your training is ineffective? Naruto inquired. Ichigo answered. Yeah. Naruto tallied his fingers. I started around 13 hours ago, 5 minutes ago. We've been waiting that long for you to master chakra control, Naruto answered.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.